because it's funny. Hold on, give me a sec. Go live. All right, we're live now. Woo. What I wanted to say is that it's kind of poetic that I'm hungover on the stream, and that the other Guardians 3 stream we made, I was drunk. So I think there's kind of some kind of symmetry here that we can appreciate. So yeah. Anyway, hello everyone. I can't get my voice can get high enough to do the correct version of hello everyone, but I hope you can appreciate it anyway. Then we're gonna talk about Guardians 3 today with Grant. Hey Grant, how you doing?
Hi. It's been a while.
It has been.
Yeah.
What was the last time? It's probably Better Call Saul stream, so.
Yeah, it was
I think so.
Curious how you only come here to talk about 10 out of 10 things. That's kind of sus.
That's actually something that I was gonna ask. I remember the stream where you were drunk, Sky. You said the stream said that Guardians 3 will be a masterpiece. Do you think that holds up?
Yes, I think it was a masterpiece, and it should get a CW live action show.
Oh.
I have to make the joke now. It's a running joke. I can't not do it.
Run.
Oh yeah, because it's a Flash joke. Now I get it. Good one. That's the required thinking, but good one. Anyway, Jesus, I forgot completely. We don't stream for a couple weeks. I forget how we do it. Oh yeah, we start with the recommendation corner. I guess I can do that. I don't know if you remember what that is, Grant. We just recommend something in the beginning of the stream to like wait until more people join, and so that we can all share something that we like that we might not get the chance to talk about in more depth. So, yeah, Tin, you start. Have you watched something other than Guardians 3?
Well, I watched Guardians 1 and 2 and the holiday special, so no, I won't do that. I'll invoke something I watched a couple weeks back that I didn't recommend, but I watched Feel Good, which I think he might have recommended us something, but like
I have indeed recommended it.
I feel like I should contribute something, but like I watched that and like. Yeah, I really liked it. Like at first, I didn't think it would be my thing because like it's, I guess very I wouldn't say very adult, but like it's, I guess like a new sort of thing when I'm dipping into like more LGBT shows. But like, yeah, I really liked it because, and it goes into a lot of stuff that I've personally like gone through because like a big part of it is like dealing with one's bisexuality, which like. Even before I realized I was trans, I was struggling with that, so that's pretty deep, and also it's just nice lesbian fun, I guess. I don't know.
Pervert.
Hey, yeah, true.
Not really lesbian when May is non-binary.
Yeah, true. Yes. But like pansexual then.
That's the better term. Well done.
Thanks.
And
actually, yeah, like one thing I also like is like Maggie's like a comedian in it, but like the show is like very funny at times because like it's not like laugh out loud a lot, but like it has a lot of good jokes in it, which I really appreciate because like a lot of shows like play dead serious with like LGBT topics because like it's like a very new thing, but like just taking the piss out of it sometimes is pretty fun, and it gave me the same anxious, happy feels that Heartstopper gave me. So, yeah, I definitely recommend it. Yeah.
What show is this? Because I missed part of
Feel Good.
The one I recommended
like 6 months ago. Jesus Christ, time flies. It was in December when I first watched it. Fucking hell. All right. Anyway, Grant, do you have something you want to recommend?
Yes. I guess, well, before I get to my recommendation, I guess, I actually just recently, one of my friends introduced me to you, the show on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
We binged season 1, and so far I'm not 100% certain how to feel about it. It's kind of I want to watch season 2 and 3 because apparently that's where the show like is really good, is what they tell me. So I guess pending may or may not recommend that show, but what I really wanted to recommend was Succession. They are on their 4th and final season this year, and we're getting close. Next week is the series finale, and so far, I think it's probably been the best season of the show. Just it's like it's a show where you just it you could really hate a character, and then in the next week you're like rooting for them. It just is constantly shifting in terms of the dynamics of the show. Like they're some of the worst people in the whole world, and like a character who you were like rooting for, you could just hate their guts like the following week. It's just that kind of show, and I don't really know very many that have really accomplished that very well in order to like retain an audience. Because one of the things I hear from people when they start the show and why they're hesitant to keep going with it is because they just hate the characters. They're just completely repulsive and unlikable. But the thing is, the more and more you get into it, the more and more compelling they are. And just even though you hate these people, they're just, it's an addictive show to watch. It's just kind of hard to describe, So yeah, I really recommend Succession.
Oh, beans. Jeb, recommend something. And not Guardians 3. You were gonna do that last week. That wasn't allowed then. It's not gonna be allowed now.
Well, a certain game came out very recently, so I think this one's easy
yeah,
for me.
yeah. You at least have that. Good for you.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it's kind of obvious. I'm going to recommend Tears of the Kingdom, the latest Zelda game. I haven't really played much of it because of personal life and had a medical emergency. I'm okay. It's just a checkup. But my God, this fucking game is probably the biggest feat in gaming I feel for a long, long time. At least in terms of the game design point of view. I've never seen an action adventure game that allows so much player freedom and also has literally every object interactable in their own unique ways, and a player could take command of that to have their own playthrough and solve puzzles their own ways. It's like absolutely insane. So you can, for example, build a giant battle tank if you wanted, or a flying drone with just resources that you collect up. I don't know, that's probably standard in other games. But in terms of the action adventure genre, this is kind of unheard of, especially in an open world sense because of the impact it would have on performance. So to see it accomplished here by Nintendo on a Nintendo Switch, and it runs decent, it has its drops because it's a Switch, is a technical feat I don't think anything's going to top. Like, I don't know, for example, I was playing one of the shrines, which is like a mini dungeon puzzle type thing. And there's probably like an obvious solution. And I just did the most dumbest shit I could. So I just wanted to see if it could work, and it literally did. And I'm like, I'm so glad Nintendo is allowing a lot more freedom, because Breath of the Wild had some restrictions in its gameplay, because obviously it was the first attempt. I can't think of anything that's really scripted here, or any route that you're forced down. You could go anywhere, do anything. And so far the story's a lot better already. I've only reached to the point where the uprising has happened. Link has met Pura and got the hang glider. I haven't experienced anything else story-wise. So I don't know anything about Zelda with Raru and whoever else and all that jazz. Yeah, I think it's better than Breath of the Wild as well so far, easily. I think it's improved a lot on what Breath of the Wild issues were. So, like for example, weapons durability is a big issue to people. So what they did, they've allowed diffuse mechanics so you can increase durability, but also all your materials are useful for any situation. It's always good to get materials now. That none of it's wasted, like in Breath of the Wild as well. So I'd easily recommend that game.
Cool beans.
Oh, I just want to add as well. The game, people say it was a DLC. There's a literally entire sky level, and you can literally explore the entire underground of Hyrule, like the literal entire. You know, how Minecraft probably has like the Netherworld, and it's just basically a different dimension, but it's the same size as a normal world.
Yes.
This is this, but it's all loaded in all together. You have no loaded screen, so you could jump from the sky all the way to the underworld, and it's already loaded
That
on a
is
Switch.
cool. Yeah, on a Switch. I imagine that would be very hard to do. Because I remember people
I
talking about like playing Miles Morales on PS5 and how like there are no loading screens and you like leave the inside of buildings and shit and how big that was. If the Switch is doing something like that, that's kind of insane.
I don't know how
Oh,
Nintendo
okay.
have done it. I really do not. On a Switch that's, how old is it? 6 years old now.
Cool beans.
But yeah, tis a kingdom.
Yeah. Um, Grant, it's some weird noise coming through on your microphone every so often. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I was moving some stuff around. So
Oh yeah, it just sounds like background noise, but it sounds like you're back to the poopy microphone that echoes a bit. Um,
all right, give me a second.
all right. Well, my recommendation. I was thinking, and everything I've been watching recently, I've already recommended, or well, Tin has recommended Ted Lasso already. Um, and I've already recommended Yellow Jackets, and I've not watched any films other than Guardians 3 because I watched that like 3 times in theater, so it's like the only thing I've seen recently. So I would recommend a show that everyone has probably heard of or watched at least an episode of, which is House, because it's the one show that's been my hyper fixation recently. But I really fucking love House. I think it's a fantastic show with exploring a character like House who is definitely autistic. And the show even agrees with me. There's an episode that's very interesting that House treats an autistic, like non-verbal autistic patient, and he's the only one who can communicate with him and everything. And Wilson makes, floats around the idea that House may have autism, and he definitely does if you see his behavior. But I think it's just so interesting that we've had like a character like that who is autistic as like a major part of TV for like a decade, basically like the face of the 2000s medical procedural type of show, as well as just being like a phenomenal exploration of every character it has. Some without its issues, it is a bit dated in a few aspects. There are episodes that you're like, the views on like asexuality here seem like they're kind of invalidating it and everything like that. And it does happen a few times, which is a shame. But mostly, I think the show does take like a very mature attitude towards like these ideas of minorities and everything and how they're represented and how like how someone can um like be separated from like the curve of like what normalcy is, but how that leaving that normalcy doesn't really make them a worse person, or it's not that they're not normal, they're just different, and the idea of what normal is hard to understand. So a lot of the times, even though House does say a lot of shit that is just like, oh, this can never happen, like this person is only doing that because of this thing they have, this mental deficiency or whatever, and then turns out that he's ends up being wrong. A lot of the time he is corrected by especially Wilson, showing just like how his view of the world is very cynical and I guess mathematical rather than understanding emotions of people. So it has a lot of different, like a very big cast of many different characters throughout its 8 seasons that really show the differences in the thought process behind how they end up curing their patients. So it's really interesting. I really love it. I am currently on season 7 in my rewatch, and I really like the entire show. And Broken's probably the best episode of the show, which is the 2-parter premiere of season 6. So yeah, House, good show. And yeah, recommendation corner is over, I guess. So now, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It's time. Jeb, who was your favorite character? And why is it Rocket? You're not.
Yeah, it
You're
is
gonna.
Rocket.
I was gonna say. You're gonna say it's not Rocket just to annoy me, but nah, you can't. It has to be Rocket.
I think it's kind of obvious why it's Rocket, isn't it? Like I've always liked Rocket in obviously the rest of the MC. I always felt that I preferred Star-Lord, an obvious choice, or Drax, and it's mainly because whilst Rocket gets the best scenes, there's just something untouched there, which is why I'm really glad Guardians 3 does the direction it does, because I really wanted it to delve into Rocket eventually. And I regret saying how much I wanted it to delve into Rocket, because fuck me, it went a bit too hard.
Poor Rocket.
Honestly, Rocket's narrative in this film, his growth and such, it's up there with like Fitz in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I
or
knew you were gonna say Fitz.
Daredevil in season 3. Like, it's of that quality of how much he's gone through and how much everything's recontextualized due to his past and how it all just fits so well together. Like the ongoing joke with getting prosthetic limbs, we now know why he does that, and he uses humor to mask the loss of his friends. And I'm like, wow, we have just added so many layers to Rocket in ways that a lot probably didn't imagine was able to, and you could really see by the end of the film why Gunn said he is the star of the trilogy, but also a stand-in for his own troubles. So yeah, it has to be Rocket. I think Rocket's the best character Gunn's ever written, easily.
Yeah, sorry. Someone said that season 6 is better season 4 than of Better Call Saul in chat. It's like, yeah, I mean, isn't that kind of obvious? I mean, season 4 is fucking amazing, but season 6 is season 6. Anyway,
season 4 is really good though, because
it is. It's just not season 6.
It's just a never-ending battle between those 2 seasons in my mind for my favorite season of the show, because season 4 is just perfect.
True. I really love both seasons. Anyway, the thing with Rocket, I feel, is that he has been characterized like well during the 2 previous films and Infinity War and everything, but once we get like the context, the recontextualization of his life and seeing everything he went through, it's kind of like we already knew who he was basically, but now we're kind of understanding why he is like that, which adds a layer of depth that we just didn't really like have before, because you can understand that, like when you talk to Yondu, that that he pushes people away, he steals batteries he doesn't need, and just because he's basically afraid of letting people in, of getting close to people, and so he pushes them away, and that's why he keeps insulting everyone in Guardians too. But you can see how much he cares about these people, by the end of Guardians 2. But then you realize by the end that, you know, even though Yondu was, you know, the way that he was, he didn't push everyone away. There were still people that cared about him. And I kind of feel like Rocket has a feeling of like he hates himself for what he did to his friend, so he thinks he doesn't deserve love. Um, Especially because you know, he was kind of made for nothing, as he mentions as well, that the High Evolutionary made them for nothing. They're just gonna be discarded. You know, like the purpose of their life is to be just like thrown away. And so I feel like he has that feeling of like, I don't belong here. I just realized I'm quoting Creep, which he sings in the beginning of the film. Um, but he thinks that he doesn't like belong here, as in like alive as a being, and he hates himself for everything he did, and so he just like punishes himself. So he gets close to people like accidentally because the Guardians are how they are, because they're all like fucking, you know, losers who are getting a second chance, and so that's why he managed to get a connection. But with anyone else, you wouldn't be able to get that kind of connection, that, you know, that family they make as the Guardians. But they managed, you know, to break down the barriers of like basically having Rocket realize that he is worth more than he thinks he is, that he can still be, you know, can still bring value to people's lives, in a way that is just added a lot of context to it by what he did, you know, trying to help his friends escape the High Evolutionary containment and end up getting them killed because of it. He just, you know, that explains everything. It explains why he can't connect to people, why he doesn't want to connect to people, why he thinks he doesn't deserve love or appreciation, and that, you know, believing that he's worth like nothing. So like all of that context makes you realize that everything that his character has been has a reason. And so we realize that he's been on an arc since the beginning of the first film to change from that, like since before the beginning of the first film, since he ran away, escaping the High Evolutionary and ending up now. But it's the kind of thing like you didn't know that this was a story about him overcoming that, about him changing that much, until this film, until, you know, Lila even says like, it's your story. So I do really, really appreciate how like you can change a little bit of the context, and you just kind of bring a whole new layer and understanding to Rocket's character that you didn't have before. That kind of makes him like the hero, the main character of the trilogy, even though when watching the first two films, you know, probably say Quill was the main character of the trilogy, but now I would say it's Rocket, like definitely. It's just like a really interesting, like very, very good writing decision that I think is just like not many people will be able to pull off, but you know, James Gunn is James Gunn, so.
I concur.
Oh, you conquer?
Yeah,
Are you
I
the
just
conqueror? That was a joke.
everything. Yeah, everything you just says pretty much on point. Because Guardians 2, you're right. Like it's basically Guardians 2 kind of shows just who Rocket is, and this one we get the context as to why he does stuff like, you know, pushing people away and treating them like shit because he doesn't think he deserves love or whatever. He doesn't think he deserves to be alive. And then this movie is just kind of like, you know, why does he feel that way about himself? You know?
Yeah, it's also like there's a one moment in the first film where he's drunk and he's yelling at Drax. He says, "I didn't ask to be made. Didn't ask to be, you know, be put apart and brought back together over and over and over." And that line always got me, especially because Bradley Cooper's delivery is fucking amazing. But like seeing what actually happened to him, like knowing it, I feel like just makes that scene so much more heartbreaking. That I just like, oh man, I know I'm gonna fucking cry so much when I rewatch the first two Guardians and I see the rocket scenes, because I'm like, fuck, I now know why you're like this. My heart.
Well, Rocket's been my favorite ever since the first Guardians movie, and that has not changed since 2014. So when I saw this movie, I was just like kind of floored.
Uh-huh. Tin, you good now?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, just had to sort things out. But yeah, Rocket and how he's the best character. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I talked quite a bit about Rocket. What do you have to say about Rocket? Why is he your favorite character in the MCU? I
Like,
assume, but like that's probably a fair assumption.
probably, I don't know. uh, I think it's because of just like, at least in the first two films, like he puts on this whole like front of being like this major dickhead to everyone, and like he's that like this super smart like raccoon, and like you get these little hints of like a backstory with like, especially in the first film, like when he's taking off his shirt and you see all the cybernetics in him,
Mhm.
and like he's this very vulnerable scene, and of course the scene where he says he didn't ask to be made and pulled apart and put back together again, and like you see how it just tears him apart inside, and it's like you can see why he would be such a dick because it's like this huge front of just how broken he literally and figuratively is.
Mm-hmm.
And actually seeing it and like seeing it after all the build up in volume 1 and volume 2, how like he has to confront like how him being such a dick will probably push everyone away after we find out the first family he's really had since his friends in Batch 89. So like, and then actually seeing those friends he had, which is why he is the way he was in the first film, just kind of crushes you because like his first word is literally just hurts. Like that
Oh
that's how much.
yeah, that scene breaks
Yeah,
my heart. I mean, every scene
like
breaks my heart,
yeah.
but
And like the first person that really sort of showed a bit of compassion was
Lila.
Lila when like she puts the rag on his head wound, and like they sort of form a bond from there, and eventually it all comes crashing down when they just try to escape, and it's just he's just a really tragic character. Like I think that's what James Gunn said is that what is you have a talking raccoon. Why is he this way, and why would he be alive? And you sort of imagine he has this really messed up backstory, and yeah, he definitely has that. I see, yeah, I think it's all just like the very deep sort of layers and like masking he does with combined with like his very tragic backstory, which we find out here is just makes for a really fucking good character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've said a lot in previous ECUMs when we talk about, movies. I've said that during Flash as well, but that I don't. I think a lot of writers confuse backstory with character. Just because you're like telling a character's backstory, that is not like really developing a character, or like adding depth or anything. Like, not necessarily, obviously. I find it hard to explain why it's different in this film, because like we already know who Rocket is. I think understanding why he is that way is certainly valuable, but what is it that in this film adds so much context? That so much to his character. I think it's not just that we learn everything he went through, but that because of his character in the first two films and then in this one, we we see him change by the end and him saying, "I'm done running." Like that's what makes those the backstory scenes like meaningful, is because there is added you are adding to Rocket's character. You are seeing that the reason he is the way he is because he's been running for his entire life, running from everything, from connection, from from love, from acceptance, everything. And then by the end he says he's done running and he's ready to accept the people in his life that care about him. He's ready to put himself on the line, put himself at risk to help everyone on the ship and save them, because he's ready to basically stop trying to avoid the issue of the High Evolutionary that has always been trying to avoid that trauma and kind of facing it head on. Which is like the scene with the gravity boots and him saying, "I'm Rocket. Rocket Raccoon" is the fucking coolest payoff in the entire MCU, because that was so fucking cool, and it shows it how much his character has just like completely changed his mentality. And I also think one thing that stuck out to me that I was thinking ever since I watched the film is Mantis saying, you know, Drax may be an idiot, but he's the only one of us who doesn't hate himself. And I was thinking, damn, yeah, like there's not a single one of the Guardians that like I get the vibe at least that they don't hate themselves except for Drax. But I think at the end, you know, they all accept themselves, but I think especially for Rocket it's very meaningful because his entire character is about him hating himself. And so when he changes from that, it's just so fulfilling to see. It's like putting all the pieces together, and like Tin said, that Rocket is like has been broken both physically and mentally because of what he's been through. I think by the end he just kind of put back together, like he's not that broken version of himself anymore. Which is why that scene with him almost dying, him talking to Lila, is like the turning point. It's him being like I'm ready to go back to being, you know, who I was before, you know, Lila and everyone died. So yeah, very good.
I think the arc for Rocket can be better illustrated by just like the last shots of both Guardians 2 and 3.
Oh yeah, someone said that in chat as well.
Yeah, they both end on a shot of Rocket, and it's like in Volume 2, he's crying obviously because Yondu, but also he, you know, has found this family that's willing to love him despite who he is and despite the fact that he doesn't think he deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Volume 3, it ends on him just dancing, and he's like, you know, actually happy, showing it's like he's actually willing to accept that love now and actually live, you know, not hating himself and actually wanting to go on living, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's why I like moments like when, you know, he is healed and then Quill and Groot hug him, and he's actually like embracing the hug. I'm like, oh yes, thank Christ. Like he's not gonna make a joke. He's not gonna be like, yeah, get off of me or something. It's just like, no, he's appreciating that there are people that care about him and that he cares about them too. It's really great. Like everything about this film just works to get like that Rocket arc, you know, done really well. Also, yeah, No Sleep Till Brooklyn. That needle drop was fucking amazing. I'm done running, and then walking in slow mo. It's great. That's as well as just the entire hallway scene. Like that's like one of the greatest action scenes.
I was gonna say that. That's generally the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Literally, like Daredevil literally proves that the formula to make peak Marvel shit hallway scenes.
Yeah. Hey, Legion season 3 has one too. So.
Is this the weakest of trilogy? No,
I think it's the strongest. Yeah.
It's my favorite MCU movie.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to choose between 2 and 3 because I guess story time. But 2 was the film that made me want to become a filmmaker. I remember walking out of it in cinema. Walking out of the cinema, I was like, fuck, I want to do that. I want to make a film, you know, as good as that. There's so much passion and creativity as that. So, yeah, I kind of find it hard to separate that. But I think 3 is probably better overall. The line from...
I mean, they're both really hard, so...
Yeah. The line from Nebula about Drax being born to be a father, not a destroyer, was fantastic. Oh, man, I cried so much at that line.
Oh, yeah.
And I love how it really kind of, like, addresses, like... Because, like, a lot of people think Drax was a bit flanderized in, like, Volume 2, where like, he was made more so for comic relief, which... I don't really agree with, because, like, I see it more as, like, him opening up more, but, like, I like how it sort of kind of addresses it and makes it a more rounded arc, and that he in the the big buff destroyer thing was a bit of a front in the first film, and like not who he was meant to be. He was just meant to be a dad, which was what Thanos took from him.
Yeah. I mean, ever since the first film, his character has always been, relating mostly to his family. And there are moments where he talks about, especially in 2, when he's talking to Mantis. And I'm really glad they brought it back, because I kind of feel like without that, it would kind of feel like, Drax is an incomplete character. But with that, I feel like Drax really is like, you understand him now. As you said, like, he is meant to be a father. And after Thanos is dead, and after, Ronan is dead, there's no more revenge he's looking for. So at this point, he's just found this new family. He wants to be with them. And then, he shows to everyone that that's who he is. He's not meant to be a fighter, even though he is a great fighter. That's not what he was meant to be. He just became that in search of revenge. But I also do really like that Nebula says that, because there's a moment with Nebula and Mantis, where Mantis is like, all you care about is, if people were efficient, or, I don't remember what the word she says. Like,
he loves us and he makes us laugh. How's that a liability?
Yeah. Exactly. And I was just thinking that because she says that to Nebula, and both Mantis and Drax, I guess, were being shown to be the most, like, useless characters of the team, in terms of like what they do to help the team when they're like fighting, when they're on a mission and shit. Especially because Drax is the way he is, super reckless and everything. He is kind of a liability. And Mantis, nobody listens to her. And as Nebula said, you're always there to support when someone is sad or whatever, but you're not really helpful. But then you realize later what their purpose is. Like, you have Mantis being the one to get them out of the obelisk room, which is because of her powers, because of who she is, because of her empathy, because she's an empath, and realizing that those monsters weren't going to kill them, they were just scared. Like, if it was Drax, he would have tried to kill them. If it was just Nebula, she would have also tried to kill them, to save herself. So you kind of show that different perspectives really do help in terms of a group like that, and that Mantis really does have value. In the same way that Drax, being the one to talk to the kids, is his value to the team. That he can be, the father, basically. That he can be a father to those kids. Which is fucking... That was the scene where I started crying. Was when Drax did the monkey noises. Because I was like...
I actually started tearing up there, because it was like, oh.
Yeah, the moment he said, I had a daughter, she was kind of like cute. I was like, fuck. I mean, to be fair, I knew where the scene was going since before that. I was like, I know he's going to be able to understand them and talk to them. But he did the monkey noises. The kids were laughing. Fucking Mantis laughing when he bonked her head. It was fucking so cute. It was so great. I just cried so much. I was like, fuck, this is who Drax was meant to be. Like, he's a father. It's so great. I really love it.
I love how she's like, how come you didn't tell us you know their language? It's like, why didn't you ask?
Yeah. Which is a fair question, to be fair. she didn't ask. I do really like it. He says, oh, we need to save them. We need to be good Jub Jub. Because it was just like a funny joke. Because they're saying just Jub Jub a bunch of times. But then he's... Quill is like, what? He says, it means friend. I'm like, oh, my heart. Don't do that to me. They were all asking if, like, the Guardians would be their friends. That's why they were saying Jub Jub all the time. Because they were scared. They lived with the fucking tyrant. Who was, doing experiments on them. And they just want a friend. Such a fucking... There's so many layers to, like, the smallest lines in this film. It's really, really lovely.
James Gunn is just an efficient writer like that.
Yeah.
The dialogue actually means something. Like, even, like, lines where, like you said, like, lines that you wouldn't think matter that much or hold much significance at all. Like, by the end of the movie, you look back on, you realize, oh, that actually meant quite a lot.
Yeah. I love when films are like that, because, I've seen this film 3 times, and every time I'm like, fuck, I get it now. get why
Yeah.
that moment happened. It's pretty great. Us being able to finally understand Groot and the audience becoming part of the family hit me hard. Oh man, yeah, that was fucking amazing. When Groot said "I love you guys," my heart just like I started crying so much. I was already crying. I began crying a lot more. Is the point I'm making? Because I was like,
I
"Fuck,
actually
we can
had
understand Groot now." Because we spent so
yeah.
much time with him.
I actually had a really good audience when I saw it opening night. Like I was worried I was gonna be the only one in there who was actually getting, emotional and like crying and shit. But no, like pretty much everyone around me was also doing that, and I was kind of surprised because that doesn't usually happen.
But my first watch was good. My second watch, there was an annoying fucking kid who didn't stop moving. He kept bumping into me, and he fucking hated the film, so he was sighing throughout the entire thing. Like when Yondu showed up, it's like, oh my god. I'm like, are you serious? When I watched this the first time, I cried during when Yondu showed up. But I guess he
Yeah.
was super cynical. And then he was talking to his dad during the film. It was fucking annoying. But his dad liked the film, so fuck you, kid. Your dad is better than you. But my third watch was pretty alright. Didn't have any problems with that. But the fuck, what is it? I was gonna say something. What were we gonna? We were talking about the scene with Groot. I don't remember what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I love you guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah, now I remember. Fucking Gamora, which Jab, I'll ask you about it, but I want to say this real quick. The thing I really love is that there's so many details about her character throughout the movie that once you get to the end, you kind of look back and you realize it, because like she spent the entire film, calling everyone but the stupid nicknames. It's like, I'm not gonna remember your names, or calling Quill Quinn, and pretending that she couldn't understand Groot, but then at the end you realize that she can. Which is funny because I was talking to CV and he was like, "Oh, I thought you just learned to understand him by the end of the film." Like, no, she always knew. She was just pretending that she didn't. But it's CV. It happens. He didn't know what the hand um, on Jamie's shoulder meant at the end of Bly. So that's how he knew. He genuinely did, and he was like, "What the fuck is that hand?" Like he told me afterwards, and there's whatever. Point being, one thing I really love is that that Gamora is doing that not because she doesn't know these people, but because she's pretending not to know. She's being, antagonistic because she doesn't want to, let people in, which is what Quill was saying. Like, if you let yourself, let people in, you could get something that's really great. And I do really like that she didn't just become Gamora from the old films, but that she has always been that way, like looking for a sort of connection, and she allowed herself to form a connection with the Ravagers and with the Guardians, even if it's like small. Like you have the small moments of like her smiling when Rocket is okay, her sighing in relief when Quill is okay. Like you can see she actually really does care and worry. And that moment with Groot, I think, is just a really great way to symbolize how much, like how by the end of the film she has allowed herself to be more open, because it shows that she does know who Groot is, and she doesn't try to skirt around who Groot is, how to speak Groot's language, and so that she just didn't want to allow herself to form a connection with anyone, but she is more willing by the end, and it's why I kind of feel like the grunt and the head nod between her and Nebula is actually more meaningful by the end of the film, because even though it's fucking funny, because it's just the way they talk, say hi, bye, it's great. You can tell that there's a bit of history and respect and love between them, which obviously we know, especially because of Guardians 2, that Nebula had some stuff between her and Gamora that she wanted to work through, and now Gamora is more like willing to accept it. So yeah, I really like Gamora. And you said as well, Jeb, you were very impressed, so I wanted to ask you about Gamora.
Hello.
Hello, Jeb.
Yeah. One of my main worries going into this film is how the hell are they going to do Gamora? Because obviously, we know the plan was never to have Gamora die for Gunn. I don't think Gunn wanted her dead, but alas, she died. Another version of her came back. So I'm like, how can they do this without it seeming like we're just retreading the same shit? And Gunn evidently was very aware of that being very easy to happen, and he puts that on its head. Where the whole point is, she's not their Gamora. She doesn't need to be their Gamora. She could stand on her own basis, have her own family, and she could still be friends with them, still associate with them. And it offers an interesting look of what if Gamora just never met the Guardians and found a different way to betray Thanos, because obviously that was always the plan. So yeah, I'm just really glad we went down this route instead of the very easy to do where it's just like, oh, we got to prize back or get her to be with us again. And instead it goes for something very interesting, and it allows Quill to also find peace in all this. So instead of lingering onto her, he accepts what he had with his Gamora was amazing, but it had to end, and he has to move on and live his life.
Which is I really like that moment where Gamora says, "I'm still not who you want me to be," and he says, "That's fine. Who you are isn't so bad." It's a really great moment for both of them.
And now he has a reason to go to Earth and see his grandfather, which is the only bit in the film that got me. I was very close at multiple points, but I was like, no, I'm gonna.
Yeah, you're a manly man. You can't cry. Don't show emotions, Jack.
I was like, I am not gonna cry. I know Gunn wants me to. I'm not gonna do it. And then the grandfather scene happened, and I was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Jeb was just remembering what Andrew Tate thought him throughout, the entire film. Like, I'm not gonna cry. I'm a manly man. But,
Andrew Tate is watching you, Jeb.
Yes. Jeb was afraid he'd be kicked out of the Hustlers University if he cried. No, but one thing that I wanted to say about Gamora, I'm trying to remember what it was. Hold on. But I wanted to say something. I don't remember. Okay, Jeb, you go on. You were gonna say something.
I was gonna say, like, scenes like Lila and the rest getting shot dead with rockets, screaming in anguish, and then hunting High Evolutionary. That didn't make me cry. It made me go, "What the fuck is this film?" I'm surprised Feige's allowed this. But I soldiered through it. But yeah, that ending scene for Quill.
Yeah.
It's just something with it, for personal things with me. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Quill looked at Mantis and said, "I need to learn how to swim."
That's what I wanted to talk about.
That was
Thank you,
sweet.
Grant. Yeah. No, that's the point I wanted to make. It was about how Rocket? Why did I say Rocket? About how Quill, him saying that to Gamora, him saying the, who you are isn't so bad yourself, is basically him being like, you know what, like, Mantis is right. I do need to stop trying to focus on this one woman I used to love so much because she is gone. And I need to kind of accept that and move on with my life because there is more to do. And that's why he goes back to Earth. It's like, oh, that's a really great arc for him. To kind of like let go of Gamora.
Yeah, it really works so well because I think Gunn originally said he wanted to kill her at the end of Guardians 2. But then Kevin Feige was like, no, we're gonna do that in Infinity War, and he was like, okay. So he just used what happened in Endgame to his advantage to make a really good arc for Peter.
Yeah, it's hard to talk. This is kind of like how the sex education stream went, I think, for me, because there's so much to talk about. Because when we talk about this and then like you realize how that relates to Mantis, how like nobody ever listened to her or saw her value, but then you see that she was actually right and she was the one who managed to save them from the obelisk's cage and everything. And it relates to her own arc in this film of like how she's always how she's never like lived for herself, which is also something that I think is really cool that the film kind of acknowledges, that she was a slave for so long and that she joined the Guardians, and she doesn't know what she likes or who she is, beyond, you know, the Guardians. But she has never done something she's wanted to do. She's joined the Guardians to help them help people, but she can also like, she doesn't know who she is, which is obviously like what you would expect from a character like her, who was born to be a slave to ego. So her leaving at the end, I think, just like, it makes perfect sense for her character, and it shows how like there's a degree of independence that she gained in this film, from learning that she doesn't need other people. Like she said, like Drax says, "No, I'm gonna go with you to protect you because you're so weak." Because the entire point is that she isn't weak, but everyone thinks she is. She needs protection and everything, but she can take care of herself, as we saw many times during the film. So, yeah, I also really like
I
Mantis.
really liked the exchange that Mantis had with Nebula, where she was like, "The only thing you're good for, is for when someone screws up, you'll be right there to support them." Yeah, and she's like, "Fine, I don't care." It's like, you know, at least.
Yeah, she says, "I know you have to find something to hate in everything."
Yeah,
which is great, because it's not because Mantis isn't taking like the insult. She knows she's wrong. She just knows the way Nebula is, that she needs to find fault in everything. Because the only thing she's good for, or the only thing Nebula, you know, thinks herself is good for, is her excellence in everything she does, which is why she's always been so annoyed when Gamora beat her, which is why she, you know, the Guardians too, she flew halfway across the galaxy just to fight Gamora.
Yeah, but I feel like that conversation kind of supports her arc, because it's like,
oh yeah,
that talk kind of shows that, like, yeah, she is kind of just the character who's there to support the Guardians, so I need to figure out who I am without you guys.
Definitely. Yeah, because she does exist in large part just to be, you know, like when Quill puts Drax to be at the ship to take care of Rocket, so he just says, "Drax, take care of Rocket, Mantis, take care of Drax," and it's just like, what? She's, you know, she's worth more than that. She can do more, and she's even annoyed at that, but you know, she's not allowed to do anything more, and when she does actually end up helping the team quite a lot. So yeah, Mantis.
One of my favorite scenes for Mantis is when Nebula's like completely broke down over Rocket, and Mantis speaks to Nebula.
Oh yeah, she says, "We love you, Rocket, and we're glad you're okay." She's saying what Nebula is thinking. I think that's such a beautiful moment. And fucking Nebula caring so much for Rocket is also like my heart. Fucking Karen Gillan, she's so good as Nebula. I think people don't understand just how good she is. It is insane.
I think because like Nebula is also someone who has been kind of like torn apart over and over again, and, you know, just broken in that way. So I feel like that's probably why they have that kind of connection.
Well, obviously that, and the fact that they've been together for 5 years after the snap. They were the only Guardians left alive. So.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah, they spent 5 years together. Which Jab found that a really cool detail, that's why they have such a big connection.
Right. On Karen Good's, yes, on Karen Good's acting, only the real ones know that she showed it off really well in Doctor Who. That was the blueprint. I'm not kidding. I reckon Gunn watched Doctor Who and was like, "Yeah, I want her as Nebula."
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think he actually said that in an interview.
Yo, let's go. Gunn Doctor Who crossover.
Yeah, he said when he watched her audition tape, she said, "Oh yeah, that's her from Doctor Who."
Yeah.
Doctor Who's the blueprint for everything.
Yeah, we're gonna see Rocket in Series 14.
It kind of is, because the High Evolutionary's actor was literally in Doctor Who like 10 years ago.
Every actor has been in Doctor Who, and that's not a fair assessment. Fucking Olivia
Yeah, true.
Colman was like a character that barely had any lines in the opening of Series 5, and now she's won a fucking Oscar. Like, it just happens. Doctor Who is
And then
an
also,
interesting
Yeah,
show.
true.
Hasn't she
also,
won 2 Oscars now?
Is it
yes, I
2?
think it's 2.
She won for The Favorite. I don't know what else she won it for. Oh, did she win for The Father? I think she might have.
Let me have a look. Search she's 1, 2.
Olivia Colman Oscar.
I'm looking it up right now.
Oh, she's won
And then
3.
also,
2019, 2022. But for Best Actress, and 2021 for Best Supporting Actress.
and then you had like obviously David Tennant, Toby Jones, Bill Nye.
Oh no,
The
yeah,
list goes on.
yeah. I just made a point about her. Because I recently started rewatching Series 5. Anyway,
The High Evolutionary actor was in a Matt Smith era Doctor Who episode. He was, and most people don't know that.
He was?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Really? Damn.
Yeah,
I wanna
see- I wanna-
he was one of the CIA agents in the Day of the Moon
Yeah, he
2-part.
was. He was the one that pointed the gun at the silence in the
oh yeah, that is
scene
him.
when the Doctor reveals him.
Yeah.
I thought he mainly just did theater before he met James Gunn.
Doctor Who is the blueprint, I tell you.
Okay, no, she's won one Oscar. She's been nominated for 2 more.
Yeah, she was nominated for The Father and The Lost Daughter, but she didn't win.
Yeah, she didn't win. See, I was
Olivia
right. She's
Colman-
won one twice. She's only won one, which is for The Favorite. I remember her speech
Olivia,
because she stumbled over her words and she made fun of herself. It was a great speech. I love Olivia Colman. Anyway,
Olivia Colman's going to be wasted in the MCU. It
is she
depends
gonna
what you
be in
mean
the
by
MCU?
wasted. Yeah, she's in Secret
Yeah,
Invasion.
Secret Invasion.
Who the fuck isn't in Secret Invasion? Like, Jesus Christ, every actor is in that shit.
She's going to be like a main character, I think, an ally of Fury.
Jesus Christ, that show's gonna be shit.
Or
Anyway,
something.
Speaking of actors that have been in Doctor Who, as in the High Evolutionary's actor was in Doctor Who, we should talk
Peter
about the High
Capaldi.
Evolutionary. No, Peter Capaldi wasn't in that film, unfortunately. But we should talk about High Evolutionary, because he's, I think, the best MCU villain, I would say. He's like,
There is no God. That's where I stepped in.
such a good line. But I think he's just like a version, like he's just like a well-written version of Kang. Like, I get from it the vibe of like that's all Kang as a character wanted to be, but he can't be because he's fucking written by Jeff Loveness and Michael Waldron. So
Oh yeah, Andrew Garfield's in Doctor Who.
we already said that, Jeb.
Oh my God.
We're talking about the High Evolutionary, Jeb. What do you like about the High Evolutionary, Jeb?
I've got I'm picking a Doctor
I
Who
don't
episode,
care
I just
about
saw Andrew
Doctor Who.
Garfield. What was the question again? What did I like about the High Evolutionary?
Yeah.
I like the fact that it's not doing the whole we need a sympathetic villain, which it could have easily done. I didn't want that for the High Evolution. I wanted someone that had an ideology that you could understand, but their actions are so heinous. You go against that entirely. With the fact of how he would obviously take animals apart, experiment on them, murder them, and even when he does create his societies, he just either leaves them to waste and kills them off, or he blackmails them and such for his own good. Like, the guy is just a psycho with gravity powers, as my friend said, and to me that's what we kind of needed. And let me just tell you, the actor whose name I cannot pronounce, as soon as he was cast, I knew then and now, I'm like, we're going to get a 10 out of 10 performance because of what he was like as man.
Yeah.
And my
I really
God,
liked him
did
in
he
Peacemaker,
fucking hit
too.
it.
And it's
He
two
killed
very
it.
different characters, to be fair, in both shows, because he's so stoic in Peacemaker.
When
But
he-
he's so good.
When he's hearing Rocket scream and he just mocks Rocket. I'm
Yeah.
just like,
You win the cry off.
Oh,
just like, man, you're such a good actor.
I
you make
hated
me
him
hate
more
you.
than I hated Thanos.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it's the kind of thing
yes.
because you said about he has an interesting ideology, but the way he goes about it is fucking insane. And that's like the same for Thanos, and I do like Thanos. I don't think he's great, but I do like him. I think this is so much better than Thanos because it's not like because I think because Thanos' ideology is based on like a faulty premise, right? The Malthusian concept of like, oh, if you know half your population, then you're gonna be able to maintain resource. Not half, but the idea of like smaller population means you're gonna be able to maintain more resources and everything, which has been disproven in the you know uh 20th century where it was tried and it fucking failed. So it's kind of like I find that less interesting because it's already going by a basis of something that we know doesn't work. um but what I do like about High Evolutionary is that his plan could work if he devoted himself to it and he had enough time. I'm sure he could create like a perfect species, but the way he goes about it is not that he wants to create a perfect species in terms of like he wants people to live and be happy. He wants to like fulfill his ego. He doesn't want to create a perfect species, a perfect universe, so that to help the universe. He just wants to feel like he's better than God, which is why his line,
Yeah.
God doesn't exist. That's why I stepped in. Works for his character so well. Is because it shows his mentality of like I'm doing this because I'm better than God, which is so fucking cool.
He
Yeah,
just
it's a
wants a
really cool
world
idea
where
for a
he's
villain.
Hold on, there are two people talking. Sin, go first. You've been quiet.
It's like a really cool idea for a villain, where like with how he reacts to Freelia, he's basically just a petulant child with a god complex, and
Mm-hmm.
that's such a good idea for a villain.
Yeah. And I do really like that the reason he wants Rocket so much is like it hurts his ego that he created a being that's smarter than him because it's not possible to for him not in his brain he doesn't think it's possible for someone to be smarter than him.
Yeah,
It's why he
like
always corrects Rocket when he makes a mistake, like speaking, because he he wants to show him as superior, to show himself as like, oh, I'm teaching Rocket how to be proper. Um, it's why he wants to create a perfect creation to show that he's better than anyone else in the universe.
and I also imagine it like, well, I don't imagine it was vampirism, but I imagine that part of why he just casually obliterated Counter Earth is because the only reason it can really exist is because of Rocket, which is something he sees as an abomination. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, the very reason why his perfect utopia exists is because of an imperfect creature. So, like, that
Yeah.
probably just rattles his ego.
Yeah, and to be fair, he does destroy his own creations often, as he says. It's not the first time. But
Yeah, like,
I do think there is a
yeah,
connection to Counter Earth that is relating to Rocket. I agree.
it's like not the entire reason he does. Even just without that, he seems like the kind of guy who would just destroy an entire planet just because
It
one
wasn't
detail was
perfect, yeah.
out of sync.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he was like, well, we're leaving here because we're going to create a new planet because we have more, when you have a new species, they're going to be perfect. And he just keeps trying and trying until they're perfect. And it shows that he can never do something perfect. Which is what he finds so interesting is because he did it, he basically by accident created a creature that not only is smarter than him, but as he said, he can come up with ideas before they're, needed. Basically, I don't remember what he says. Something like, "Oh, a society or species that can't see, look forward or predict the issues is gonna die. We can't let that happen." And so, only one creature was invented, which was Rocket. It's the only creature that can actually, see ahead in a way compared to every other species that he's created. And Rocket was created as an abomination, or just disposable, but he managed to destroy High Evolutionary's face and um, show him that he isn't as good as he thinks he is. Just like it just makes him so unreasonably obsessed with Rocket that like most of his mistakes in this film come from that, and he ends up fucking himself over, which some people would say is bad writing because those people are dumb. but he's just actually a character that's so devoted to an obsession because of because of, you know, what Rocket has done to him, that he can't let go, even if it means like losing his creations. Because if Rocket is better than him, he needs to prove that he's better than Rocket to prove that, you know, he is God. Because even if he creates a perfect society, it would still, like Tin said, be because of Rocket and what he did to the hypotonic filters. So it would always be because Rocket managed to help him. So he needs to show that he's better than Rocket even without that. So yeah, it's an obsession that completely works with this character in every moment of the backstory.
What I also love about the High Evolutionary is compared to Ego, for example, the worst thing Ego did on a personal level was obviously kill Peter's mum.
And destroy
High
his
Evolu-
Walkman. Don't forget
yeah,
the Walkman.
and High Evolutionary goes 10 steps beyond that with the torture of Rocket, and you really feel that each one of them want to kill him in their own ways and take their time with it. Which is why when he finally gets Rocket, Rocket does, the name's Rocket Raccoon, and then they all take on him. It's one of the most satisfying payoffs in the MCU.
Yeah. I do really like as well when I don't remember who asked. I think it's Gamora who asks, like, why didn't he tell you about this? And then no, it wasn't Gamora who asked. Anyway, someone asked, why didn't he tell us about this? And then Nebula says, that's worse than what Thanos did to me. And Nebula's crying. I'm like, fucking hell. Like, she would definitely understand what he's going through. But even then, it's worse than what happened to her. Like, it's on a level of something that nobody can comprehend, just how much he has, like, fucked up Rocket. Only Rocket can understand it. And as you said, it fuels that hatred. In a way, from then on, you can see that every character is way angrier than they were in the beginning. Like, Quill said, no, we're not killing anyone to Drax in the beginning, but at the end he says to Groot, kill them all and everything. Like, he's very much okay with just, like, annihilating everyone by then. He's fucking done with everything. He's angry as shit, which I love. I love seeing Quill that angry.
I love every time where he's like, I know it's a trap, but they all go, it's a trap, and he's like, yeah, it's a face off.
It's not a trap if you know it's a trap. It's a face off. It's a fucking like great line.
You know he's gonna beat the everlasting shit out of this guy.
Yeah. And it's like Gamora says to him, it's not a face off if you're facing a guy who's 1,000 times more powerful than you. That's a trap. But he's like, I don't care. Like, which is obviously very character for Quill to just take on people more powerful than him because of his, you know, resolve and emotionality. It's great.
Like, when he goes like, they did this to my best friend, I was like, oh god, that hit me.
Yeah.
Especially since in Guardians 2 when he's like using the celestial powers properly for the first time. One of the memories is him and Rocket flying.
Yeah, I love that moment as well. Yeah, and he keeps saying that, you know,
his reaction.
He keeps calling Rocket his best friend, and it's just like, oh my god, it hurts. That must hurt so much for him to see him die. And obviously, Drax making, you know, the second best joke.
Well, I just was gonna say, like, all the stuff, like the scene in Guardians 2, the scene where they're flying together and flying like, yeah, they're best friends or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that kind of informs Peter's reaction when Rocket is dying. Like, he is basically like, you know, he's not giving up. He's not gonna let this happen, you know, to his best friend.
Oh, as well as like Chris Pratt's acting. And he's like, I am not letting him go. You can see he can barely finish what he's saying. He's so angry and distraught.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think this is probably Chris Pratt's best performance so far.
Yeah.
And to add to that, we got to consider that he blames himself because obviously he was drunk.
He was drunk.
Add that with the fact of what happened in Infinity War and the guilt there.
Yeah.
Just add so much
Yeah, which
more.
he also mentions when he's recapping everything to Daniela Melchior. It's funny. That scene always gets me. I don't know why. I think it's there's when he says, that he got angry and ended up causing half the universe to die. There's just like a cut to a wide shot, and then he throws the rocket file in the air and grabs it. It's kind of like he'd like, oh fuck, I did do that anyway, and then like he moves on. I kind of just feel like he's like realizing the amount of like the hand he had in like destroying half the universe, and be like, no, I'm not gonna think about that. It's great. I really like that moment. It's always gets me. It's very funny.
That whole sequence where they're in that like workshop or whatever, orgoscope, is probably, I think, the funniest part of the movie.
Yeah.
I love
every
when
joke with Nathan
Mantis.
Fillion as well is fucking amazing. I love the joke about him having a dumb guy working for him because he comes back twice, and then he because it happens twice, and then he comes back when Adam Warlock kills the guy they're interrogating. He's like, oh, I know how that is. I got on a guy like that as well.
And when the one that I was gonna say was when Mantis makes the guy fall in love with Drax.
Yeah, I love how Drax is like, oh, again, and then he says and later every time, and she's just like laughing at herself. It's great.
And I was gonna say, do you recognize who played the guy who thinks he's in love with Drax?
I did think I recognized him. It looked familiar, but I don't know where from.
It's Benjamin Baron Davis.
Who's that? I don't recognize the name.
Dutch from Red Dead Redemption.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah, that's him.
Cool. Hell yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I now love that character way more now. Thanks, Tim. They made Dutch fall in love with Dave Bautista. That we can say that's a thing that James Gunn did now. I also love that. I think it's a joke that you'll only find funny because of the meta aspect to it, but I find it fucking hilarious how much James Gunn made his wife scream and cry and everything for being shot in the leg. Because I was like, fucking hell, that's cruel. That's your wife. I always laugh so much because it's just happened so fast, and she's just like screaming for her life. I'm like, man, that's your wife. Why'd you do that to
her? my favorite jokes with the carrot guy and how he's just like shitting himself for his life. I can't get over it.
I think we should mention, because there are people comparing that to the jokes with the joke about the broccoli man and Quantumania, because people are fucking stupid. But it's kind of clear why the carrot guy joke is way better when it's not interrupting like a character moment, as it is in Quantumania, with Hank just kind of stopping his realization about the nature of the universe being completely different, just to be like, yo, that guy looks like a broccoli, and then just like completely stopping what they're doing, because what Gamora's doing there makes sense. It's a pretty good attention relief when you see a guy who looks like a fucking carrot being terrified for his fucking life. He looks so offended at first, and then he looks terrified, and then when she leaves, he's like, he just sighs like, holy fuck, I'm alive. It's fucking great.
It's the eyes that gets me every time.
Yeah.
They're so wide.
Yeah, it's all like a broccoli man who literally just shows up, has no reaction. He's just there. It's a guy. He is actually a character. They make him be afraid for his life because she's targeted him just because he looks like a carrot. It's so fucking funny.
And it kind of comes out of nowhere as well. It's the last thing you fucking expect.
Yeah, because she says, I have a plan. And they're like, okay, what's your plan? And then she fucking shoots a guy in the gun, and she's like, okay. Everyone comes here, we're gonna kill that woman. Let's shoot the carrot guy to show him mean business.
And you got Chris Pratt going, no, please.
No, not killing him. It's great because there's so much going on in that scene. I think it just, the piling onto it just makes it so much funnier. Because you're like, fuck, are they gonna get out of here? Are they gonna actually kill people? Is Gamora go back to being assassin Gamora? Is Quill gonna, fold, or is he gonna actually try to stop, the killing and be, a guardian like he is? And it's just everything in like a few seconds that you have to process, and there's just a fucking carrot guy scared for his life. So yeah. I like carrot guy. I'm glad he didn't die.
Yeah.
Um. Anyway, yeah, Karakai. I think it's impressive that Gunn has developed a strong friendship between Quill and Rocket when you consider that they don't really have that much on-screen time together after Guardians Volume 1. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you can imply a lot with the few scenes that they have. You don't really need to show it, which is something I really do like. That, as I said, backstory isn't really characters, so you don't need to show these things that are just like, oh, them hanging out. If you can imply it, which you do heavily in Guardians 2, imply, that there is a strong bond between them, which is why Quill is always so like annoyed at Rocket for trying to push them away because he thinks of Rocket as like a really close friend, whereas Rocket, whom I also think that he's not showing it. So it is a very different type of dynamic in Rocket's own mind, which is why I do really like when Quill says in Guardians 2, like, "Oh, are you trying to piss everyone off because you're succeeding?" I'm like, yeah. So yeah, James Gunn, good writer. What else to talk about? 10. What do you want to talk about? You took notes.
Yeah. I wanna. Well, I kind of talked a bit about like the post credit scene, which weirdly enough is probably the best post credit scene, like a post Endgame sort of film. But like, because one thing like I really like about it is that, well, there's two things I like, but the first thing is that like it shows that Quill has actually spread Earth's music across the galaxy with the new Guardians
Oh, you
sharing
mean the
what their favorite
mid-credit
song.
scene?
The mid credit scene.
Yeah. Yeah, because the
Yeah,
post-credits is with the grandpa,
yeah,
so I was confused.
yeah, but like I really like how like it's just Quill's time out in space, like him just like constantly sharing his music has like really spread to like
Hmm.
people like Kraglin and even Adam Warlock's got a new favorite singer now.
Yeah, Corn. I love that scene. No, it's not Corn. Corn is the little girl who says it. She says Britney Spears and Corn. I don't remember who he says, but he says, "Do you remember Jab? It's like a singer who also has some work with a band. You would know. You like music."
I'm glad that's the standard. I don't remember. Let me have a look. I'll find this out.
Yeah, but anyway, go on to.
And like because like I'm probably reading into this a little bit too much, but I feel like it's kind of like a meta way of like James Gunn showing how like he showed like a lot of these old classic songs that not a lot of people have heard of, and like making them a bit more mainstream thanks to the Guardians films, because like
That's an
I
interesting way
kind
of looking at it. I kind of think you're right.
because like it's no coincidence that like Rocket plays "Come and Get Your Love" when
Yeah.
James Gunn said that's like the anthem of the Guardians films, and he said that was a largely unknown song, and like he said he sees himself as Rocket a lot more. So like it feels like a meta way of him showing that he like showing a lot of love to these older songs. It's
Mm.
like
No, yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a good catch. I didn't think of it that way. I just kind of um I thought of it the first way you're talking about how like Star-Lord just spread his music across the galaxy, which is also something that the holiday special makes a point of the the Guardians making, people aliens basically understanding music, which is why I fucking love the number where they sing Christmas. I don't know what Christmas is, but Christmas time is here with Kevin Bacon. Because he's just like they don't understand Christmas. They don't understand that concept, but they understand starting to understand music and they're starting to like it. And the customs of Earth um that Quill is, passing on to them, music is the one that sticks the most, because obviously, which is why I really like as well that everyone joins into Dancing to Dog Days Are Over, because they start like so like confused, like, huh, what's this? I kind of like this. And then you see everyone dancing and, super happy. It's like such a fucking beautiful moment of everyone celebrating with a song that nobody has heard outside of Earth, but now they have. It's great.
Oh yeah, and Drax dancing.
Oh, that moment
Uh,
broke me. I was like, I know
so
he's gonna
good.
dance, but the moment he started, I just crying like 3 times as much.
Did you
Yeah.
mean Florence and the Machine?
Yeah, the TikTok she made.
I don't know.
I don't know what you were saying. You just said Florence and the Machine. I thought you meant the TikTok that Florence made where she was watching the film and she was crying. And the caption talks about how she was already crying, but when her song started playing, she started crying so much, and like how it took her back to her childhood of being super like into superheroes, and how happy she was that her song was used in the film.
I was just trying to find the singer.
Oh, it's Florence and the Machine, yeah.
Yeah, I found
but
it.
everyone should know it's Florence and the Machine. Fucking Dog Days Are Over. That's like one of the most famous songs in the galaxy now, because it is spread across the galaxy. You get the joke. Thank you. But yeah, Tin, good catch. I think your interpretation of that post credits is correct. I hadn't thought of that.
Thank you. Also, another thing I really like. I'll let you go first.
Grant?
Oh, me?
Yes.
Yeah, you go first. I'll let you go.
I was just gonna say, I feel like the love of music that is spread to people. You talked about how Rocket used that at the end in the post-credit scene. The thought came to me that I feel like that was also shown in the opening, because I wanted to talk about how I think this is probably my favorite opening to a Marvel movie, where it's just him singing Creep, the acoustic version, as he's just walking around nowhere and finding Peter drunk, and it's like a lawn shot.
Yeah, no, that's fucking a great moment.
Right.
Yeah, because I feel like this song really fits well for Rocket in general, like just who his character is and what he thinks of himself. And like
earlier when I was describing Rocket, I literally said he thinks I don't belong here, and I accidentally quoted Creep.
Yeah.
It just fits with this character really well.
Yeah.
10.
Yeah. And he's
or not.
Just
Grant,
singing,
you're cutting out quite a lot.
Peter's love of music has spread to him as well, and what?
You're cutting out quite a lot.
Is it better?
I'm gonna change the region real quick, so give me a sec. Oh, or not, I guess.
He's gone.
Anyway.
Alright, I've changed the region. Grant, speak. Oh, that's not good.
Oh no, spaghetti.
Grant died. Well, Tin, say what you wanted to say, I guess.
Oh yeah, well, the other thing I like about the mid-credit scene is that it actually establishes a new lineup. Because after Endgame basically just didn't establish a new lineup for the Avengers, and even 5 years later, we don't know who the Avengers are.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that James Gunn just establishes a new team right out the gate.
Yeah.
That was just so refreshing.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, okay, these are the characters who are the new Guardians. When people talk about the Guardians, it's like, but the thing is Jesus Christ, my voice is so bad. The thing is that with the Guardians, it didn't really need to establish it, I think, like, because if a new film wanted to bring back the Guardians, as long as you have Rocket there, because he's the new leader, you don't really need to confirm a new lineup. With the Avengers, the problem is that everyone is like in different parts of the galaxy. So you're like, wait, who's leading the Avengers? Anyone part of the Avengers? Anything like that? But James Gunn still did it, which is so much better than, you know, anything relating to the Avengers.
Like, exactly. Like, it just gives like a nice sort of. It's just refreshing, especially because spending 5 years not knowing who the Avengers are at this point and just getting the new lineup right out the gate, even though it wasn't really that necessary, it just feels like a nice sort of ending for the film.
Yeah. Someone said about
it's really funny how the Avengers.
Oh, sorry. Go on. Right.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's really funny how the Avengers have like had an infinite amount of like more screen time than the Guardians, and yet none of the Avengers characters have anywhere close to the same level of development as the Guardians have had with just 3 movies.
Yeah, I always find that funny. I mean, I guess. Jesus. I guess. But
Yes.
I guess that a character like Cap or Iron Man, I guess you could argue that they have that because obviously like they have their own trilogies as well as like the Avengers films. But it's the kind of thing where like I don't think any one of them gets to the level of depth that Rocket has. Like, no matter how much time they had,
No.
it's
Oh,
what
is
I
my
talk
mic
about
better?
with like, yeah, you're better now, Grant. But it's what I talk about with like you don't really need a lot of time to like develop and establish a lot of character. It's kind of like part of why I really love James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is because there's so many characters, but I feel like none of them are like left undeveloped. Every one of them gets at least like a moment for their character to, you know, to shine basically. And I feel like every one of them is an actual character. So by the end, you actually care about all of them, and the character conflicts. And it's just like 1 2 hour film. And James Gunn just has an ability to like if you have a scene where you're like developing a character, you don't have to use that scene just to develop that character. It's like what we were saying about the scene where Nebula and Mantis argue. Because that scene works well for all three characters in that scene, just Mantis, Drax, and Nebula. Like all of them get character from that. You don't need to just be like to just focus on Mantis and show like, oh, this is what this moment means for her. No, it means a lot for all three characters, and you don't need to, set aside any character just to focus on in one scene. And James Gunn understands that and does it really well. Where his scenes always achieve like a lot more purpose than a regular scene you'd see in the MCU. We're just like, oh, this is the time for this character to have like a monologue about their past life and how hurt they are by it. Which I guess is I'm thinking more of Shang-Chi right now, but you know what I mean. It's the example that came to mind. But yeah, it's some really uncanny ability James Gunn has to develop characters even without a lot of time. Which is why, like, even in Peacemaker as well, like all of the characters in that show feel very fleshed out, even if they, not all of them have like the most amount of screen time, because main character is Peacemaker and his dad and what's his face, the vigilante.
Vigilante.
Yeah. But I still like I think Hardcore is probably my favorite character, despite all that. So yeah. And what's her face? The Amanda Waller's kid.
I cannot remember. It begins with A, I think.
Mm. But yeah, her as well. I think she's really great.
I forget.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I watched Peacemaker.
Yeah, I watched it when it released, and then no.
It's like
never watched it.
Abadiah or something like that.
Oh yeah, it is something like that. Yeah. We see the
Sorry,
Avengers
no.
don't have the same level of character development, but their writing is more inconsistent, most likely to be handled by multiple writers and directors. That is true, but I don't think I would say they have the same amount of depth. It's like what we say, like they probably do, but I still would say Rocket is a deeper character than all of them. But you could probably say that someone like Iron Man has more depth, or Captain America has more depth than like Drax, But anyway,
Could have been Hulk, but they didn't care enough.
well, Jeb, he has a son now.
Oh
He
yeah,
went back.
like
He went back to the planet from Ragnarok to find a son, and that all happened off screen. That isn't that great, Jeb?
and him becoming Professor Hulk,
Oh yeah, he did that off screen as well. Jesus Christ.
and him grieving for Black Widow was just one tiny scene.
At least he does. It's better than if he didn't.
Banner really he should have been like the best character of the Avengers, honestly. Like if they did a pretty alright job with him in the first movie, but like if they actually, if James Gunn was writing
Yeah.
this character, then he definitely could have been the best character
Yes.
in the whole. So many opportunities to character like sympathetic and like really just emotional, but they just don't do it.
Yeah.
I always had the idea after Black Widow's death, we'd get a scene with Hulk and Bruce talking to one another about like the entire 5 years and this happening, and that's when we get the Professor Hulk payoff, where they finally agreed to accept one another properly and merge as one.
Mm. It's like it's fucking awful doing that off screen because basically like, oh, you just killed Hulk, you just killed a different personality inside Banner. It was beginning to become more of like a more main personality. He was able to talk, and they had conversations during Infinity War. You were setting up an interesting conflict. Anyway, this isn't about Hulk. Hulk sucks because the MCU sucks. But yeah, the character's name is Adebayo. Bootneck said in chat, so thanks, Bootneck. The one from Peacemaker. Forgot what I was gonna say. All right. Anyway, is there any character that we should still talk about?
I guess we could talk about Adam Warlock since like he's like a bit of a hot topic of how he's been handled.
Oh yeah, there are
Shit,
people who don't
worst
like it
character.
because
Get rid of
they're
him.
cringe. They're like, oh my god, he wasn't the main villain, as if it's like he was supposed to be the main villain because he was in a post-credit scene. When the entire point of him not being a main villain is that we had someone even more powerful than him, someone who fucking could hold over him the threat of destroying his entire species. So that kind of just builds up the threat of the High Evolutionary, and it makes Adam Warlock be able to be a character on his own without just having to be like generic like Superman type villain because he was created to do that, which I do like as well, that because of High Evolutionary's obsession with Rocket, he pulls Adam Warlock out of the cocoon too soon, and that's why he is, you know, a bit fucked up in the head, as some might say.
I love the way he's introduced in the movie, how they just do a fucking needle drop of crazy on you, and then you just see him zooming towards the screen, and he has like this super stern expression on his face, like he's on a mission. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, it's super funny because he always tries to take everything seriously, but he is a very unserious person. It's great. Fucking moment where he hugs you know, everyone at the end. He's just like confused, like I don't know how to do it or what to do, but knowing that he wants to be part of that moment after saving Quill. It's great. I really like Adam Warlock. He's like not a big part of the film. I think a lot of people wanted him to be, but I do really like him.
Also, he has one of my favorites of funny moments is where Gamora says one more step and this thing gets her, and he says, "Don't be rash."
Don't be rash. That's so funny.
Don't be rash.
My dad loved that joke. That was the biggest laugh he had when we watched the film. Don't be rash.
Also,
his voice being so deep and everything, he says it so seriously. It's like, oh, hold on, don't be rash. It's great.
I also love when he's like, "Hey, who threw that thing at me?" Baby.
Baby, yeah. Oh, I love that moment. Baby. It's fucking great. It's the moment I was crying and crying like, shut up. There's a baby.
And like the thing is, like before the film, I heard that like he was sort of changed to be a bit more like he's like, I guess, like a child with like a body of an adult, but like I was expecting like him to be a lot more childish, but like in the film, like he's, you can tell the stories like he like doesn't have a sense of right and wrong because he's been raised by Aisha and was pulled out too soon. So like,
yeah, well, I think it's just like the way he is a child is that he's very naive, but it's not like he's like a child.
He's a literal child. He
doesn't act childish. He's just naive, and that's where his like childlike behavior, I guess, comes from. But I really don't think they made him like. I don't know. I like him. I don't know how to describe it. I think people disliking it's just like, oh, they wanted more probably because the comics or something like that. But I really did like him, and he had a cool arc, which is exactly what everyone expected, that he would help the Guardians by the end. So
they wanted him to wield the gauntlet with 6 Infinity Stones, like in the comics.
Yes. Also, you're back to cutting out a lot, Grant.
Yeah. Also, to be fair, like that sort of doesn't really seem to be James Gunn's fault because like he set Adam Warlock up, so like I don't think he would be under any obligation to actually use him in Volume 3. Like Russo's could have used him in the Infinity War films, but they just didn't. So like Gunn just kind of had to carry him over from like the setup in Volume 2 and used him the best he can.
Yeah, and I think the way he was used in 3 actually adds an interesting level of depth to Aisha, which I don't think I've seen people talk about other than like when I talk to Jeb about it. But the fact that like you know, like the High Evolutionary is like, hey, why didn't you've known about Rocket's existence for years? Why didn't you tell me? She just says sorry and everything, and like her creating Adam being because she wants revenge on the Guardians, but not to like capture Rocket, and then High Evolutionary uses Adam Warlock for his own purposes, basically appropriating a creation of his creations for his own, gain. But that adds a bit of depth to her because you see the way High Evolutionary, threatens the sovereign, saying like, "Oh, I will destroy your species. Like I have the as is my right as your maker." So with that level of threat, if she told him, if she told High Evolutionary about Rocket, if she brought him to High Evolutionary, I think she understands that he would kill the sovereign because he needs Rocket to be able to create a perfect, civilization, a perfect species. When he does that, he doesn't need the sovereign anymore. He's gonna kill every creation that he's ever had because they're not perfect. Because what he wants is perfection. He wants a utopia. So I think it's like a level of like her wanting to protect her species is why she kept that secret. I mean, that's not like explicit in the film, but I just think that's like the obvious reason why she wouldn't have told High Evolutionary about Rocket. And I do really like that because it means that Aisha does have like, she cares about her people to a way that's like different than just like her like only caring about herself, or just wanting revenge, or only doing the High Evolutionary's bidding, being like a mindless robot. She's actually like a person who cares about the people she cares about, the people around her. So the people she governs, I guess, because she's the high priestess, right? So yeah, I do like that. And without Adam Warlock, we couldn't really have that because he was how we got the Sovereign involved. And without that, if it was only Adam Warlock without the Sovereign, then we wouldn't have his redemption arc, which it happens because his mom dies and he gets fucking exploded, but then saved by the Guardians, by Groot, which I love that Groot says everyone deserves a second chance. Because Groot understands that Adam Warlock isn't a bad person. He's just doing this to save his own species, but and then later he gets up angry, I assume, because of revenge. But it's mostly, I think, the way that Adam Warlock is acting. He understands now that, oh, if the High Evolutionary is dead, then my species is fine, so he can rest even if his mom is dead. Which I do really like, that the first thing he thinks about when the planet starts exploding is his mom, and he fucking flies straight at her to try to save her, which shows that he is a person who cares, which informs his reasoning for changing and not just being like a mindless drone that was created just to kill the Guardians. Which is why, as well, I would say it's probably High Evolutionary's fault that he is like that he is emotional, because he was taken out of his cocoon too soon. So like, High Evolutionary loses because of his own faults, which is something I like. Having a villain so obsessed with something and that causing his own downfall is always interesting. So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Look at your notes, then. Read them carefully.
The other thing that really noted down was like, I guess one of the first thing that came to mind was like the opening logo, because like, and some could say it seems a bit self-congratulatory, but like, I feel like they've earned it. Like they've been going for 9 years by this point. They've got like a entire legacy of their own in the MCU, like across 7 appearances, and like even like the end credits, like it isn't the same as like Endgame sort of final end credits bit, which was a lot more final bow fanfare thing. Where this feels a lot more like a personal sort of goodbye, which I guess you could say for both films actually. Like in like the difference between how Endgame wraps up his characters and Guardians of the Galaxy wraps up their characters.
Right. I think I know what you mean. How the end of Endgame, I think it does feel a lot very self-congratulatory, which again I don't think it's a problem. It does make sense with the history of the MCU, because that film isn't just about the Avengers, about the MCU as a whole. Basically, it's an ending and a big ending for the MCU as a whole.
Except not really.
Oh yeah, it's an ending, but not the ending. So it's why I corrected myself. And then this film also
Yeah.
has it, but I think it has it in a way that I feel is much more like, I don't know, I much prefer it because, you know, showing all the pictures from the old films and playing Come and Get Your Love and everything. You just be like, yeah, like we've been through all of this, like, you know, the pictures of the old films and celebrating the cast, and I don't know, I like it. Good credits. Also playing Come and Get Your Love during the credits after the mid credit scene was fun. I was sad because I live in Brazil, because people didn't fucking know the lyrics to the song, because I was fucking singing loud as hell and nobody joined in on me. It's not TC, sorry. CV said that people in his theater were singing along. I'm like, fuck, I wanted that. I was singing and nobody joined me.
You'll never see that in Britain.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
we know Britain sucks.
You guys are so cultured.
The most I got in my theater was just sort of me bopping along to the song, and a few of the people like going when the song came up.
The most I've ever seen, and it's the first time I've ever seen a film applauded, was No Way Home because of the Spider-Man.
Oh,
Yeah, pretty much the same when Andrew and Toby showed up. That was the one time we got like a bit of a like a big gasp or anything. Not even a clap, just a gasp.
Jesus Christ, Britain sucks.
Our theatre erupted in applause. It's fucking weird.
For me, I literally could not hear the film at all. And, you know, autism's fun. So I was fucking overwhelmed as hell because there were people screaming, like, oh my god, Andrew. Like, fucking hell, everyone knows they're in this film already, shut up. And they kept fucking talking. Like, I did not know that the TASM theme, you know, the leitmotif played when he showed up, because people were so loud, I just couldn't hear it. So, yeah. That was fucking annoying. And the same happened with Toby and like the rest of the film. Everyone's fucking applauding, like, yeah, hell yeah, whoa, for everything. Even though I know that like 90% of the people in that theater didn't like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, they was still like, yeah, Andrew. Fucking fake as shit. Like I have a friend who's never watched Daredevil, who's always hated every like Netflix Marvel show, and when Matt Murdock showed up, he fucking cheered as hell. I'm like, fuck off. Sitting right next to me. I genuinely told him to fuck off.
He doesn't like Daredevil?
Yeah, he doesn't like the Netflix shows. He hates Daredevil.
What the fuck?
Oh, you want to know something even funnier? Back when Daredevil was still showing, I think after season 2 came out, I was talking to him about it. I was like, nah, I hate Daredevil. But he always used to talk to me about how the DC had better TV shows than Marvel because the CW shows. So he genuinely thought that the DC CW shows are better than Daredevil. I don't think he thinks that anymore, but to be fair, he hasn't seen Daredevil, so who knows?
Oh, he hasn't seen Daredevil?
Yeah, I don't think he has. I don't think he will. Because all he cares... I don't think he cares anymore about, like, the MCU as much. Like, he didn't even watch Quantumania. He bought a ticket for opening day. I was like, I'm not going. I don't care. I've heard it's shit. And Guardians 3, he forgot to buy the tickets when usually he's the one who like, yo, they started selling tickets, and he buys them the minute that they start selling so that we can watch on like opening day, IMAX and everything. So he forgot, so he ended up watching a day late because of it. So I think he's kind of checked out of the MCU, which like finally, but you know.
So he'll watch CW Flash, but not
Well, he
Daredevil.
stopped ages ago. I think he stopped when Arrow ended. That was the last I watched of the CW shows. Yeah.
Fair enough, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's the kind of thing where, you know, you like the CW shows as you're growing up, and then you grow up and you're like, why the fuck did I ever like this? Just kind of like the entire premise of Madvocate's Flash videos. Like, hey, this isn't as good as people say. Not as good as I remember. Anyway, Yeah, but my theater, I'm trying to think with them. So when I watched
There's
opening day on
nowhere to run.
IMAX, when I yeah, when I watched opening day on IMAX, I think most
Oh.
people were very quiet for Guardians 3. But when I watched it the second time, like a couple of days later, a week later, they're actually like laughing at every joke. Like I was like, hey, people in the opening day didn't like the film as much. So I don't know. People are weird. But yeah. I do like the cinema experience of watching these films with people and having them enjoy it as much as me. Because when people laugh at a joke I like in the film, like, hey, that's good. Really, just makes me smile. And then when we watch fucking Everything Everywhere All at Once in theaters in London, nobody said a fucking word. I think Jab was the only person who laughed in the entire theater. It was just only when that lady used the dog as a fighting tool, because that's how Jab's humor works. Animal abuse is funny, isn't that right, Jab?
That's why I laughed when all the Rockets men died.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he must have fucking having a ball when when High Evolutionary shot Lila. Like, fucking hell, he killed her, his friend. What a loser. Okay, but for real though, the wailing in that scene from Rocket, I'm pretty sure it was Bradley Cooper who was voicing by that point. I know that young Rocket was voiced by 3 different actors, but because that was the last flashback, I'm pretty sure it was Bradley Cooper because he voiced the older version of young Rocket. That was like one of the most like impactful like voice acting performances ever, I think. Like the fucking wailing, it just got to me. I was like, fucking hell, that's real. And it fucking annoys me that like the Oscars don't acknowledge voice actors for like best actor like nominations, because I genuinely think that Bradley Cooper deserves a nomination for this film. He was fucking insanely good.
He's not going to though.
No, definitely not.
Because suck.
Yeah. Yeah, I keep thinking like fucking Scarlett Johansson not being nominated for Her is still like the fucking worst decision ever. We're never gonna nominate anyone based on a voice acting, or maybe they will, but in a few years they're probably gonna add a new category only for voice acting because they see voice acting as lesser than acting because the Oscars suck. But genuinely, I think a voice acting performance hasn't affected me this deeply ever before. Maybe Arcane actually, episode 3 of Arcane probably has some of the best voice acting, but this is close.
Yeah.
This is on that level. Let's see.
I was just gonna say the only other one I can think of, really, it's not voice acting, but like it's motion capture, is Andy Serkis. They didn't nominate him for War for the Planet of the Apes because they don't see that as like actual acting, I guess.
Yeah, but did he get a special award for Gollum? Like they created an award specifically because he was so good as Gollum. Pretty sure that happened.
I don't remember.
Andy Serkis Gollum Oscar, yeah. Trying to find it. Oscar. No, this is... Oh, here we go. Serkis is acclaimed for his performance as Caesar in 2011, a high-profile campaign by 20th Century Fox, ready to be honored with the Best Supporting Actor nomination. Oh, but he wasn't. Yeah. And the rest is just... Oh, okay. I guess he didn't. I could have sworn I read somewhere that happened, but I guess my brain... I think he won an MTV award. That's what award he won. Yeah, he won an MTV award. My bad. Not as prestigious as the Oscars, but they did get that award right, so maybe they're better than the Oscars.
Maybe. Well, maybe he can, at the very least, get an Emmy for his performance in Endor. So.
Oh, you mean Andy Serkis? Yeah, I was thinking of Bradley Cooper. I was like, wait, how would he get a nomination for Endor? No, yeah, Andy Serkis, yes.
No, I'm talking about Andy Serkis. Yeah.
One thing that we haven't mentioned at all, but that I liked in this film was Kraglin and Cosmo. They had like a very basic story, and like I saw every beat coming, but it was so cute. The way Cosmo kept being like, "No, you know I'm not a bad dog. I know you don't believe that, because dogs are cute." But also, I like Cosmo. Her voice actor is good as well. That's why I wanted to bring this up. It's because the way she adds emotion to those lines is if she's like genuinely really fucking hurt by being called a bad dog. It's just it's just so good. But I do like that very simple story, but like Cosmo saving Kraglin, and Dad making Kraglin be like, "Nah, you're a good dog." Um, it just warms my heart. As well as just like I really like that Kraglin has a hard time to like use the arrow, because it is something that is not only does it take time, but it's like Yondu said, you don't use it with your head, you got to do it with this heart. And it's hard for Kraglin to do that, and understand how to do that. Um, especially because like the only connection he ever had with someone was with Yondu, who wasn't ever the most open person in, the Ravagers. So him trying to understand that, and that being like the only value he brings until he actually can do it because he listens to Yondu is great. Especially because Yondu cameo, and I cried so much when he showed up. Like, oh, Michael Rooker, so good, and just like that being how he manages to use the arrow, but he still doesn't use it perfectly, which is what I like, because a lot of people, have the criticism of a lot of things. Like, oh, hey, you just learn how to do that because you believed in yourself. And he did kind of learn, but he already had a bit of practice, and he doesn't learn perfectly because he would have died if not for Cosmo. So, he basically allows himself to be like, yeah, you know what, Cosmo, I'm sorry, it's too harsh on you. You have, a value with your telekinesis that I wasn't seeing just because I felt hurt. But then, yeah, I like Kraglin. I like Sean Gunn. I think he's a funny ass actor, and I'm glad he's gonna be Weasel again in Creature Commandos. Yeah, I don't know what else to talk about with this film, because we don't do it like Heath we just don't do it like chronologically. We just talk about what comes up. So if anyone wants to say anything, you can. The floor is open.
Trying to think. I feel like I've said everything that I wanted to say about it. I guess. Did we talk about Yondu showing up?
I was just talking about that. Yeah. What I was going to mention is that we didn't talk about Lila and Teeths and Flora and how they're all fucking great, and seeing them die broke my heart. But like, Lila is like actually like a character, like a good character. I like her, and you can get a lot, I think, from her character just by her being like, it is good to have friends like her. That feeling, it kind of shows how she's never had any friends, anyone um to be close with before, and now she does, and she's experiencing that happiness, and she always has a feeling of wonder of like, hey, what is the world that the High Evolutionary is going to build for us, what it's going to be like, because she wants to explore it, she wants to live a life, and then that moment where she realizes that it isn't true and that they're all going to kill them. It is insane. I think the level of detail with the animation of her character, because you kind of see her trying to like process everything, like, no, that can't be true, like, no way they're gonna kill us, like, what's the purpose of our life? She just like goes through a lot of like an internal monologue, and she's a fucking, I don't know what type of animal is she.
An otter.
Otter, yeah. She's a fucking otter, but you get so much like emotion and like a personality from her like face acting. It's amazing. Also, was Linda Cardellini, I think, who did the mocap and voice acting for her. She's fucking amazing. And again, another actor that probably should get recognized for her talent in this film, but won't because it's voice acting. But Jesus, she was so good. And especially in the scene, I think, where she tells Rocket, when they're all dead and Rocket's about to die, and she tells him that, basically comforts him and shows him that he has a purpose. And even though he may have not been created with a purpose, it's not, about they're the hands that guide us, and they're the hands that guide the hands, and the creators and the hands that guide the hands. Yeah, which is just a really great line of taking agency over your own life, and how Rocket needed to do that. It just delivered so well. I really like it.
I feel like Floor was like probably the most heartbreaking out of all of them. Like the first time I saw Floor, I was just like, my goodness. Like a fucking rabbit who just can't, literally has like mechanisms for legs or something.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works, but yeah, it just
that one hurt the most because she was like the most innocent. Like
Yeah.
she literally named herself after the floor because she's on the floor.
Yeah. My name is Floor, cause me is on floor. Whoa, genius. It is. And it's like when Rocket shows up to like tell them they're gonna be killed the next morning. She's like, Rocket, Floor played now? It's like, oh my god, no, Floor. Something slightly different is gonna happen. And she kept screaming when Lila was dead, like, Rocket, Teeth, Floor, go now. Teeth, Floor, go now. Like, just fucking, like, let's go, we need to leave. Because she was fucking desperate, but she was saying, I don't know, the way she talks, the voice acting again is really good, of showing like that innocence. It just makes it that much more like tragic, because it's just a fucking animal who was abused and given like intelligence, and not be able to experience anything because it was built for nothing. It's just so sad. Ugh. Which is a good way to get, the audience on the side of hating the High Evolutionary with a burning passion. Which is something I find interesting. I don't know if you guys think like me. I know that you said, Grant, that you hated High Evolutionary more than Thanos, whatever.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I ever hate characters. Like, I hate characters when they're poorly written. But, like, I don't hate the High Evolutionary. Like, I just find it weird to like hate a character. Like, I'm like, oh, he's well written. I love his character, and I know what he did is terrible. But I just find it weird to have the sensation of like hate when a character does something like heinous. You're like, oh, I hate him. How could he do that? I don't know if it's because I have like a degree of separation. Like, this is all fictional, so like whatever. But I don't get the idea of hating a character.
I get that. I just think more so my hatred came from when he was mocking Rocket for having that, obvious like emotional reaction to his friend's death. He was mocking him for that. Like, that just grinded my gears.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, again, I wasn't mad at him, but I understand having that reaction to it. It's just weird to me. I don't know, because I see characters and I'm like, people hating. I was gonna say something about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I don't know. I guess that would be a spoiler, so I guess I won't. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't understand hating a character. Or like, I was watching like Sex Education with my mom, and we saw saw fucking Ruby like insulting Maeve. She's like, oh, you just know, like, you're Ruby, she's fucking gross, like, I hate her. I'm like, I don't understand hating a character like that. Like, I understand that her character is supposed to be annoying and she's supposed to be a bitch to everyone, but I don't hate her. She's
like,
just a character.
there's a difference between recognizing that character's written to be hateable and actually hating that character. Like, hating the way they're written.
Yeah, exactly, because I feel like the only time I hate a character is when they're poorly written. Like, I hate Shang-Chi. I hate like Scott Lang. I don't hate Kang. I mean, I hate Kang because it's poorly. I don't hate High Evolutionary, but I do hate like a lot of the heroes in the MCU because of how shit they are. So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit weird. TC, you asked about the Rocket not getting sucked out. First off, pretty sure he's wearing a seatbelt on the ship that would like keep him there. But also, don't those ships have like a one of those like permeable shields, like when you break the windows, like the ones that are purple when they're permeable and they become orange when nothing can go through them? Because I was pretty sure that was what's happening, that they were getting through because it was purple because they broke the glass and Rocket couldn't do anything while they were like halfway through it. You know, like the shields you see a lot of in the film, like how they need to turn the orange ones to purple so that they can get the people onto nowhere. So that's what I assumed was the case. But either way, seatbelts. Always wear your seatbelt. You never know when a hell demon created by a egomaniac, gravity controlling person, you know, could attack you, and a seatbelt could come in handy. So happens more often than you think. Yeah. Oh yeah, I was also Jeb, I know you didn't like the idea of the film did of like, oh, character about to die, but then they don't die. Is Jeb back? Because he said PK. Oh, okay.
I am back.
Okay, good. Because I was talking to you and then you didn't make a noise. I was worried. Anyway. You said that. I don't know how to feel about it because the way I see it is like, because it's not like it doesn't make sense or anything. You know, like Peter not dying or Rocket not dying. I do understand that there's a bit of like, oh, it hurts the stakes a bit if every time we think a character is about to die, they're just like, you know, saved. I think I like the nobody died just because like I don't think I would have been able to handle it emotionally if any of them had died after all that. I think I was like too emotionally invested and I cried so much. I was like, oh, if someone actually dies, I don't know what to do. How can that be the end of that character? Because I think I see the Guardians as like real characters, like real people, more so than I do like most characters I see in media. I think I just connect to them on a level that I don't think I can connect to on like with like 99% of other films or shows. But I don't know. How do you feel about it, Grant? Like in terms of that?
I mean, it is a little overdone it sometimes, but I'm mostly fine with it, to be honest. Like, it's a good like when it's used here, like it's a good way to have like Rocket like confront Lila and like his friends and like I guess be told that like he's not done yet. He still has shit to do. So
Yeah. Rocket's arc couldn't be completed if he had died. So
yeah, it's like it. You can say it's a little overdone. The whole will they die, won't they die? But like it's fine here if you ask me.
uh-huh. Because I was thinking, I think because Agents of Shield, the finale also does that with one of the characters. I'm gonna say who. I think Jeb knows what I'm talking about. I hope Tin does too. And it's the kind of thing where I'm
Yes.
like, I think it's fine, especially because it's the end. I'm like, you don't need anyone to die. Just, you know, you can just give him a happy ending. I think especially like, have you seen when everyone dances to Dog Days Are Over? Would have been a bit tacky if Quill had died. I don't think people would be as happy as they were. You know, they wouldn't be like, let's say a friend, you know, part of your team dies off screen between seasons and then go to a party at the end of the episode to celebrate that that person is dead. Because, you know, The Flash is an amazing TV show and Caitlyn died off screen. Anyway, I feel like James Gunn was just like, I want to he was like, I prefer to have the payoffs even if it like people were a bit disappointed that, you know, characters didn't die when, you know, there's like a bit of a promise that they would, like the marketing and the way he talked about the film on Twitter and just the way the film portrayed a lot of moments. But I think I'm fine with it. I don't know. I know you aren't, Jeb, so it's fine to be wrong. We still support your wrongness.
Grr.
Grr. Yeah. Trying to think of more to say.
I actually was gonna wait until we had a break in the conversation because I just got a message from my brother. It looks like I'm gonna need to dip here.
That's all right then.
That's fine.
Thank you for coming then, Grant. Always fun to talk to you, and I'm glad you liked this film as much as we did.
Yeah, I was really glad to be invited on here. I love Guardians, love. I think I can now be done with the MCU. Just, I feel satisfied.
Yeah. I think this is for a lot of people the point where they're gonna just stop caring about the MCU. So good jumping off point though.
Well, thank you so much. Do this again a little bit more in the summer. I have less on my plate.
Yeah, no worries. Well, thanks for coming. We'll see you later, Grant.
All right, see you guys.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Because goodbye was very choppy because it's cutting out, but I hope you were able to understand what he was saying, Chad. You know, in spirit, at least. Yeah. Well, is there much more that we can talk about?
It's not much, but like it's the one thing I really don't like about the film is the fact that you barely use the Guardians theme because like
I actually like
I
it. But go on.
But like, because like I knew that like when Tyler Bates wasn't going to be on for the third film and he was bringing on John Murphy from the Suicide Squad, I thought, is the theme going to be dropped like a lot of the trilogies? And it was there. Like I definitely recognized it. Like I recognized like the slow down piano version from the first two films, so it definitely is in there. But I just kind of wish it was just played at a couple more pivotal moments. Like it's not an issue of film by any means, but it's just
disagree.
like it's just I wish it was used a little bit more.
I disagree. I think the way it was used was perfect. The first time it's used is when Rocket crashes, his ship, kills the aliens that are attacking him. It plays again when they're saving everyone. I feel like it's playing at moments where the Guardians are being Guardians and they're helping people when they're saving people. Because of the rest of the film, they're kind of like, firstly on a quest to save Rocket, and then on a quest for revenge on the High Evolutionary. When they're helping people, when they're like being the Guardians of the Galaxy, I feel like that's when it is appropriate to use. When you kind of earned it, at that moment you're like, it's all the Guardians, they're all fighting to help people and to help their friends. I think that's the moment you should use it. I kind of like that they didn't use it as much. I don't know. The first moment it played, when Rocket crashed his ship, I started crying. It's like, fuck, that's the theme. Finally used it. And we're like, oh, now they're being the Guardians. It's kind of like, I know that I think the only moment that I probably could have used it is the moment where Rocket says, he's done running, and then they go into the hallway fight. But the no sleep till Brooklyn needle drop was too good, so I'm okay with it. I'm okay with not using the Guardians theme there, but I actually think it was used really well. I do think, though, that it's kind of interesting how the soundtrack is very clearly John Murphy's and not Tyler Bates's, because it sounds so much like the Suicide Squad soundtrack. It even sounds like the main theme from the Suicide Squad at certain points. And I do really like John Murphy, but it sounds very much like that heavy use of like electric guitar and everything. Whereas, which is interesting because Tyler Bates is known as well for using like a lot of electric guitar and like heavier like rock in some of his soundtracks, such as The Punisher. But his soundtrack, Tyler Bates' soundtrack, sounds a bit more, I guess, epic, operatic in a sense. It sounds, more similar to the Avengers than it does to The Punisher, whereas this one sounded closer to The Punisher, even though The Punisher soundtrack guy wasn't doing the soundtrack anymore. So that's ironic. But yeah. I also, but to be fair, it's like, I don't think it's a problem that the soundtrack sounds like that, because I think it fits really well with the tone of the film being so much more heavier and darker, and having a lot of characters who are so angry and who want revenge a lot of the time, So I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Like, it does kind of add to how different this film feels from the other two, because like the first two, like they go from like pretty darkish openings to like a much more light-hearted bit. Like in the first film, you have the cancer scene, then that jumps to "Come and Get Your Love" after during the title card. The second film doesn't really have like a darkish opening, but like
No,
it
yeah, it
goes to
starts with
Mr. Blue Sky.
well,
It goes to
it
Mr.
starts
Blue Sky.
serious with them like, oh, we have fight, we have to prepare for the fight, but then there's the joke stuff because Drax being a silly little goose as he usually is, and then Groot fucking plays Mr. Blue Sky and Desi as everyone gets fucked around. It's great. I love that opening as well.
Yeah, and like how the third one goes from a pretty serious opening with like Rocket being chosen as like the subject, and you go zooming into his face, and then suddenly Creep starts
Creep,
playing.
yeah.
So like it's a very big tonal
Yeah, and
difference from the
then
first one.
right after that, we already have Rocket being attacked by Adam, right? So it's like the film starts very heavy and it keeps being heavy. There is a lot of comedy throughout, but it is a very much more serious film than the previous ones, which is something I find very commendable from James Gunn, is having to maintain that balance of comedy with this film that is so much more serious than the other two. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I mentioned this like on Twitter, but like this is the film where I realized he's the best person for a Superman film, because like before I will admit he wasn't my choice. I mean, he was definitely a good choice, but like he wasn't my particular choice. Like I thought there could be a different director, but like after this, now I get it. He is absolutely the best person for it. Like this level of sincerity and like keeping that James Gunn style while still telling a very well told story. It's like, yeah, Superman Legacy is gonna be fucking awesome.
Especially because he's writing it, dedicating it to his dad and everything. It's going to be so personal to him, as he
Yeah,
said.
and it's like funny enough, like the scene where Adam flies off to save his mother. Like that kind of reminds me of like a scene from All Star Superman where like Superman's flying off to try and save Clark Kent, but he can't save him.
Yeah, I was
Like
gonna
it's
say that does have that vibe.
especially since like Adam Warlock very much has like a very sort of Supermanish sort of vibe. Like
Yeah, he's supposed to be the MCU Superman, as are many characters in the MCU. Not the MCU Superman, the Marvel Superman. In terms of like comics, as are a lot of other Marvel characters, because Marvel does like stealing ideas from DC. But you know,
yeah, like it definitely gave me that sort of vibe. Like the general sort of vibe of like Superman actually can't save everyone. Like and
yeah,
like that's sort of what happens there. It's like I do sort of see like I know that the script was written like years before he was fired, and like
yeah. The
but
film was
like
supposed to
and
come
like
out in 2020, so yeah.
so like it's probably a bit of a coincidence, but it does line up a lot with how you can see he was going to go from this to writing Superman. Like
Yeah,
you can tell that like he definitely upped his game on the sincerity level.
yeah. I don't even know if he upped
Um,
this game or if it's just more of the like. Try to see if I can phrase it. I think he had more freedom. I think it's kind of clear that the first Guardians film is the most like Marvel film he's made, right?
yeah,
And then the second film is like completely different. It's like not Marvel at all. There's barely a plot in that film. It's kind of insane. Um, it's just character exploration. Doesn't relate to the larger MCU at all, except for like Ego is a Celestial. I guess that name relates to the rest of the MCU. And then the third one, I think it's just like he went fully like merged his ideas with like deep character exploration and his vibe of the way he wrote and shot and directed the Suicide Squad, with adding like some style and I guess as someone said earlier in chat, like his bloodlust of having things be more, I guess, more explicit. Even though the film is like PG-13, it is a PG-13 that is actually PG-13 and not, um, whatever the rest of the Marvel films are, just very like sanitized. Like this
yeah,
film isn't sanitized at all.
like I get the sort of vibe like since Kevin Feige like knows this is his last film, and like
Yeah,
after the whole firing thing, like he gave him a lot more freedom to like just do
exactly.
whatever he wanted.
I
as
think
like a little
James
part in it.
Gunn matured a lot as a filmmaker over time, and that everything he gained from making his other stuff helped him a lot. Like the Suicide Squad, I think you can definitely see that this film gets a lot from it. Um, Obviously, you know, the the fucking score, for example, you know, was made by the same guy as the score who did Suicide Squad, as we were talking about, as well as a bunch of actors coming in from that, like Danielle Melchior and Melchior.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And even like visually, it looks a lot like the Suicide Squad. Something I
yeah,
noticed during the holiday special, where like the first two films, they have a very sort of different style. Like the first one's very sort of dark and grayish.
uh,
The second one's very light and colorful. But this one, it just
it looked distinct.
well,
It has
it's like
that
it's very
look of
bright.
the way that Suicide Squad has that. It kind of looks overexposed, but not in a bad way.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, like
it's
it's
not like it's
colorful, but it's also not too saturated. It's an interesting look that I really love for the Suicide Squad because we got some really great shots in that film. 'Cause sometimes it looks desaturated, but it's not really. But it's very like the light. I don't know how to explain it. It's just something
yeah,
as well, like even with camera movements, like a lot of the time the camera is snapping back, snapping in between characters, especially in that scene where they're in Counter Earth and Quill is trying to like tell Drax to stop fucking, you know, leaning on the lying down on the couch and talking to Nebula and Mantis at the same time. It's like a bunch of characters talking at the same time. The camera just moving between them is very Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, which is not something that he's done before. Which
yeah.
I wonder if the DP for this film is the same as the Suicide Squad. So
I think it is because I think like this is the same cinematographer as like The Flash and that. So like I think he's sharing that when he goes back over.
I am curious. I'm going to check. Did Jeb leave? Did he fall asleep?
Yeah, I must have.
Oh, dear Lord. Okay. Well, I guess it's just the two of us. My voice cracked because, you know, it's fine. Um, Photography. Direct photography is Henry Braham, who did indeed do the cinematography for The Suicide Squad and Guardians 2 and the Holiday Special. Not the first Guardians? Yeah, not the first Guardians. Okay. So yeah, Guardians 2, 3, Holiday Special, The Suicide Squad. So yeah, I think it's just Gunn having people that have, you know, that he has used to mature as a filmmaker and, you know, helping them mature as well. Because I do think this film looks very much more like a distinct like film, like a vision of how they wanted to shoot than previous films. And like even though I really do love Guardians 2, and I think it's also way more visually appealing and more interesting than the first one and way more like vision focused than the first one. I do think this film kind of beats it in that department, which is why what I say is like I think a lot of the time like man, this film is like I think it's better in every way than two, even though I think two is like perfect. But I just can't stop loving two as much as I do. It's like the main reason I'm doing ECUM today is because of two, because my love for two and cinema, like my love for Guardians 2 made me love cinema, which made me get into all of this. So yeah. See you, TC.
Yeah, I get that. Like you can tell, like this film's visual, like it like visually, it looks a lot better. Like it's better in a lot of areas, but like
Yeah.
sometimes you just love like a film so much that it's hard to let go of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I just yeah. Three's probably the best of the three, but two is the one I have a close attachment to. I was gonna say something, but I forgot. Oh yeah, one thing I really do love is the thing James Gunn does a lot with using practical effects because this film looks so good in terms of effects. Like all the animals on a Counter Earth, obviously costumes and everything. But like, oh, the MCU would usually do that with CGI. The fact they didn't was just like, oh yes, thank God. They're people
And,
acting in a scene with other people. They're not CGI. It's so great. And
and like
the,
give
the
me a
the
break.
amount of detail you have as well in characters like Lila and Rocket and Teeth and Floor, Groot as well. It's just it's really impressive.
Yeah, it's like this coming out right after Quantum Mania. Like you can tell which one had the passion put into
Well,
it.
it's like Carrot Guy in this film was practical. It was very a costume. It was very makeup. Broccoli Man in Quantum Mania was CGI. His face was CGI, and that kind of says a lot about the effort put in on a fucking throwaway joke about a carrot guy being scared for his life.
Exactly, and like even just using practical sets, like the High Evolutionary's office just
Yeah.
being a practical
Well,
set.
what I was gonna say in terms of practical sets, the sets at the Argo scope are fucking amazing, especially because it's all supposed to be like look like they all come from living matter, because that's what the thing was built on, was growing living matter. It's basically like skin and meat and everything, and it looks like that. It's really good. It's like the fucking suits for the Argo Sentinels as well. It is practical and it looks really good. It looks disgusting. Like I'm like, oh fucking hell, you're like wearing skin around you, but it looks so good.
Yeah, it's like you can tell like it looks like it was grown, like it looks like a proper organic set. Where like
Yeah,
if it was like a different sort of production sort of team, it would look very sort of sterile and just sort of bland.
yeah. It was directed by Peyton Reed. Yeah. uh, oh, guys, I started writing my Quantumania video and I have no idea how much I want to die. Um, Especially after seeing Guardians 3. The reason I started writing because I was in a good mood after watching Guardians 3 for the third time. I was like, let's start. And I'm like 8 minutes into it and already have like 2,000 words, 2,200 words, I think. I'm like
Jesus
8 minutes
Christ.
into the film. They haven't even gone into the quantum realm. And this is the good part of the film. I like the first act. I mean, like, I don't hate the first act. So, there's actually sequences and choreography have improved as well compared to the hand-to-hand combat in Volume 1 to Volume 3. Oh, yeah, definitely. I think James Gunn got a bit more ambitious, and with that ambition came a lot of work that he put into making everything look good. I mean, if you look at fighting sequences in the Suicide Squad as well, you can see how much that is like way better than what we see in the first Guardians film. Guardians 2 doesn't have like that much fighting sequences beyond like the like ships and everything, but when it's like hand to hand or like fighting Starro, it is just so like, I don't know, the way it's shot and framed and the action is fuck, I forgot the word. It's not choreographed. It's like blocking, yeah. Like the blocking of the scenes being so like feels much more purposeful. So yeah, it's not like the Guardians one is like bad action. I mean, other than
Yeah,
the prison escape scene, but it is just like a very greater level of it.
it's just you can tell like that was James Gunn when like he wasn't as how do I put it, like Volume 2 and onwards is like when he has a lot more sort of freedom to like
Yeah,
be a bit more creative with like the scenes and that, because the first one's good, but it still feels very much like an MCU film, like especially in the color grading and like for a lot of that stuff, it feels very gray, and that's contrasted immediately by Volume 2, which just goes from that to just bright, colorful rainbow, basically.
yeah, yeah. I really love the color palette at on Ego, the planet. It is very bright and colorful, and then when you figure out the truth behind Ego, it's just kind of like a big contrast between that, because it's the front that Ego's putting to convince Quill that he is a good guy. He's just trying to help him. He's his dad. And then you realize that it's not really true. And then you see everything falling apart and the fucking the ground caving in and everything. It's like all the gray and red coming from
And
it,
like
and it's like it doesn't look gray, but the color of the gray
and
is
like
very
and like
saturated.
and like you can see like all the color from Ego's body is just completely gone.
Oh yeah, when he's like super pale, I love that as well.
Yeah.
This became a
I love
James Gunn sucking off stream.
that.
It happens. The Young Arrow scene of Volume 2 was the first time I noticed Gunn doing really. Yes! Oh, that
Oh yeah.
scene. Yes. Still one of my favorite MCU scenes. I guess the equivalent in this film would be the No Sleep Till Brooklyn scene. I guess this
It's
the
like
one in this film is probably better, but the on the scene's great.
it's like the bit that really sells it for me is like when the chorus kicks in and it starts singing, coming a little bit closer with this grand orchestra, and it's like
Uh-huh.
this shit is something only James Gunn can do. Just
Yeah.
like
Well, it's great because it's like it's kind of um absurd in a sense because Rocket is just like, hey, do you have some of Quill's music? Like, yeah. And then you start playing the music and just start fucking annihilating like hundreds of people with just walking through them and not caring. And it's really gruesome in some senses. Like everyone being so fucking scared of the arrow because they know what the arrow means. Because how powerful it is. It's really cool. And then you start seeing like a bit of Yondu and Rocket connecting and the song playing, being like they're such in such a good mood despite killing like so many people at once. Uh, it's really good.
hmm,
James Gunn's use of music is unparalleled, except for
yeah,
Legion, but you know. I do think that this sense of using music, it's very interesting because you can clearly tell that like the use of licensed music inspired heavily the way that Suicide Squad was made, like the 2016 one. And then James Gunn was like, "No, let me show you how to do it." And he just came in and did the Suicide Squad and actually showed how to do it right. So it's kind of like it's like you're like, "Oh, I'm inspired by this guy. Let me do something like him." And they're like, he comes in and shows you how to do it properly. It's kind
yeah.
of, it's
Like
kind of like a huge
it's
admission of defeat. It's kind of like how people say like BBC getting RTD to do Doctor Who again is an admission of defeat. I kind of feel like it's like that. Like you're bringing in the guy who you're trying to copy from because you know people
yeah,
like him.
like it's like when I first saw Suicide Squad like in cinemas, the moment they used Spirit in the Sky, I was like, yeah, this is just trying to be Guardians because
Yeah,
like that was all over the marketing for the first Guardians film, and it's like you just admitting it just by using that song, and so like
yeah,
getting the actual guy in it and actually doing it successfully this time,
yeah,
unlike the last time they tried it.
yeah. And then it's just like the Suicide Squad just starts with a fucking banger, which is a Folsom Prison, right? Playing.
Yeah,
Yeah, the live version with Michael Rooker just um with the throwing the ball at the ground, like following the rhythm. I was like, oh my god, is he gonna do a Baby Driver thing? Um, it kind of did just for that one scene, but it's really great. Um, and then fucking the opening credits after the mission fails, quote unquote, and it's playing. I don't know the name of the song. It's like these are people that died. I don't remember the name of the song. Was it? People
yeah,
who
it's like all,
died, died.
all the people who died.
Yeah. Yeah, it's people who died in the song. And it's fucking great. It's like following a bunch of characters and you're establishing like the tone of the film of being like a lot of people gonna die, we're not gonna care. Like this is just a thing that happens. This film's gonna be gruesome as shit. Fucking Captain Boomerang is gonna be sliced up by helicopter planes. It's just a really good use of the song because it's so morbidly funny. You know, it's like a very dark humor. It's really good.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder what he's gonna do for Superman Legacy because like part of me kind of hopes they do like a similar thing to Batman where like you have like a song that just speaks a lot about the character in that and like
Well, like,
the one song that
right.
I have in mind is obviously Starman by David Bowie because like
Yeah,
that's basically a Superman song basically.
yeah. It is kind of the obvious choice, but not. It is obvious for a reason. I hate when people are like, "That's the obvious choice." It'd be so lazy to do it, as if they're like, there isn't a reason why it's obvious. I think there are a few interesting songs he could use. He's probably gonna use Superman, the song, because that is a song that exists. I imagine that'll play in the credits. Like unironically, it plays in Legion. It's one of the scenes that always gets me to cry when watching Legion. I think that'll play. It could also play when Pa Kent dies, because the entire point of the song is the powerlessness of the character in the song, and how they like they feel like they can do anything, or like they should be able to do anything and everything, but they just can't. Or at least that's
Sure,
the
yeah.
context where it's used in Legion, but yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much bang on the money for Superman. Like, oof.
Yeah. Or it's just like there's, a couple things you can't stop, like a heart attack, which is what we're hoping they do, and not, hey, don't save me
That
when a
tornado.
tornado comes. Yeah. That scene is still the funniest thing. It just makes no sense.
Mm.
Because one thing I was thinking as well, because imagine that scene, with the tornado, but instead of Superman being right next to it, he's far away, and then you have him try to save Pa Kent, like how Adam Warlock tries to save his mom, and that's the kind of thing you have. Like even you said like this in the comics, but that's kind of like the idea, right? That's how you would do that scene in a way that makes sense. You have him be far away and trying to save him, but he can't. You show his powerlessness to stop certain things in the world, um, as well as not fucking breaking his and his dad's character of being like, hey, don't save me. It's chill. Just protect your identity. It's not gonna be your dad or
Yeah.
something.
And plus, you know he's gonna take that seriously because he says he's dedicating it to his dad.
Yeah.
So like, you know full well that's gonna break you. Like,
Oh yeah, I just
like
know
that.
I'm gonna fucking cry my ass off.
Like we already know he knows how to handle an adopted father dynamic with the whole. He may have been your father boy, but it wasn't your daddy.
Yeah, I love that line. It's so yondu. Because it always makes me laugh and cry at the same time. Because it's showing his connection to Quill, but it's just like the way he words it, like he was your daddy. I'm like, yes, Michael Rooker. That's how you say that. It's great.
Yeah.
Someone compared Chad James Gunn to Tarantino in terms of using music, and I think that's a very good comparison. Um, I can't really think of any Scorsese examples though, but Tarantino, he also knows how to use music very effectively. I think Pulp Fiction has some of the greatest needle drops ever in terms of like what the song does for like the scene, especially when I don't remember the character's name, but it's Uma Thurman's character. She gets injected, I think, with adrenaline, and she has the fucking needle sticking out of her chest. The song playing is super chaotic. It's hilarious. I love it. Or obviously the famous dancing scene with the John Travolta and Uma Thurman. Also great
Yeah.
use of music. And obviously,
Yeah.
Baby Driver. Though I think Baby Driver is such a different example because it's a film that music is like so much at the center of it. I don't know how to describe it, because like the story is being told through music to the character. Like he can only can only express himself through music in a sense, and can only exist with music always playing in his ears. So it is a very unique type of film. Not probably the deepest film in terms of writing, but it is a very interesting film in how he utilizes, the famed needle drop in many cases. I mean, the opening credits with the one take scene of him just going to get coffee is amazing, especially because the lyrics of the song are fucking written like around Baby, and you just see them like matching up perfectly with the timing. I'm like, oh my god, my autism brain loves every second of this. Like genuinely, that film was made for autistic people. It's just so fits so perfectly everything like rhythmically with the music. It's so great. Fucking Brighton Rock is like the greatest use of that song in any media. I don't care because it's the fucking guitar solo playing in the moments where the standoff between John Hamm and Baby. It's like fuck,
Yeah.
so good. And using like his favorite song like against him, and obviously the song. What's the song? The one that his mom sings that he has a recording of. I love that song. Baby Driver. I think it's Sky Fair. Yes, she's the one who sang the song and played the mom. Easy. Love that song. It's 'cause I'm easy. Easy like Sunday morning. Fucking great. And it also explains his connection to music comes from his mom. Which, hey, let's bring it back to Guardians. The Rocket's connection to music comes from Quill, that he relates that music to Quill. I think it's part of why, how Rocket shows that he cares about Quill is by listening to his music, showing that he cares about Quill's interests. Which is why I like as well that in this film, he's the one who's always singing the songs and everything and how much he loves it, and that Quill gives him the Zune. As well as in Guardians 2, when with the arrow scene, that Rocket is like, hey, you have any of Quill's music? And Rocket sings a lot as well in the second film. It just kind of shows like that growing interest he has in music, and I guess a connection with Peter, which I really do appreciate like a lot. It's like a thread that I didn't notice until we started talking today. I'm like, hey, yeah, actually, yeah, in the second film, like he has many moments with that relation to music, like him getting the Zune at the end actually does fit a lot, because I kept thinking like, did the third film kind of just like get his interest to, make him that interested in music off screen, but it didn't.
Like,
Definitely didn't.
No, actually, even in the first scene of Volume 2, he's getting the music set up so they
Oh
can.
yeah, he's the one who sets up the music. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Fuck, I
the
forgot.
bit where even Quill's saying, "No, you probably shouldn't do that," but like,
Oh yeah, that he
but like
does
they
the
still.
wink, like, oh yeah, no music. Yeah, sure.
It's like even at the start of the first one, you can tell that he's warming up to Quill's music.
Yeah. It is interesting as well, because it's talking about like music and connection. Like there's definitely a thread of like the music connecting the Guardians in a sense. Like even by the end, even Drax connected to them via music, by dancing to "Dog Days Are Over." But how like in the first film we have Groot dancing at the end, after when he's growing from that flower pot. That he that's part of how he gets his connection to Quill, and Infinity War and off screen as well. That they all kind of love his music, and it's the same for Gamora, with the dancing the first time. She says he's using his pelvic sorcery to to let her guard down. It's great. And then in the second film they actually do dance. They're at Ego. It's great. Yeah, there's a lot of big thread of like music connecting them throughout these films, and I do like that. It kind of gets like some closure with the way that it's not only like connected them, but connected like the entirety of Nowhere, sharing that love for music, and Rocket getting to be the one to get the main part of it, get Quill showing that he sees Rocket and that he cares about Rocket. It's really good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're singing along to Rubber Band Man and Infinity War. Yeah, it's another good example.
Plus, there's also it's not like a connected bit, but like it's like a good and that's nothing to do with Rocket, but like there's a deleted scene in Infinity War where like they're on Nowhere after Gamora's been taken, and like Drax turns the music off because all Quill's been doing is listen to music because it's his coping mechanism. So like,
Oh
it's
really?
been
I
like his.
don't think I've ever seen that scene.
I think it has, but like if you think about it like that, you could see it like part of Quill's coping mechanism for losing his mother was listening to a mixtape a lot, and so his
Yeah.
coping mechanism like became one for the whole
Yeah, I mean,
Guardians.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, yeah, it all starts because Quill connected to his mom a lot through music and their love of music, and she gave him, on her deathbed, awesome mixtape volume 2, which he didn't have the guts to open until the end, which is like a way of like not accepting that she was gone, and when he does accept that, and is ready to move on and connect with another family, he has that music, which is he does connect to the rest of the Guardians with that music a lot, as we see in Guardians 2, especially Rocket singing along and knowing all the songs and asking if any of the Quill's music is in Yondo has any Quill's music when they're killing people and everything. So yeah, fucking as well as like Kraglin. Remember he was singing when he was waiting in the ship when the Sovereign showed up.
Yeah,
in
he
Guardians 2.
was Like he was eating ice cream and it was singing onto a
Soup.
wham bang
Yeah,
shagalong.
yeah. Soup. Yeah. You taste so good to me. It's fucking amazing. I love Gunn, man. He's hilarious. Uh, I guess it isn't that different to Baby Driver. I guess that ought to say because it is very much using music as a way to show connection between people. Which is how Baby connects to Lily James and his own mom, and it's the same for Peter, connecting his connection to his own mom and the rest of the Guardians, and then the entirety of Nowhere. Uh, yeah, I do like that.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, James Gunn, always using. I do really like that. Is he kind of uses basically like superficial things. I guess I don't want to call it superficial, but uses things that could be viewed as superficial to create very meaningful moments. I think, like especially if you watch Peacemaker, a lot of that is just like you have moments that are just jokes or silly, and it's like you think it's superficial, but you use that for payoffs later on that really do feel very much like they matter. Like you have Quill lying to Yondu about the orb at the end of Guardians 1, and giving him the troll doll, and Yondu kept the doll. And he was also like he didn't like try to hunt down Quill or anything. He was okay with the fact that Quill lied to him, and that kind of already implies a sort of connection that the two had. But at the same time, that smile and laugh to himself at the end of the Guardians 1, it could just be Yondu being like, oh, that silly little guy, I'm gonna fuck him up. But then when you realize in 2 that he didn't, and then you get the entire idea of their connection, you're like, oh fuck, they're like actually really close. And then you add on a bit of like a layer onto something that previously could have been just viewed as like a very superficial thing. Which is something I really like, is when when you're writing, you don't make anything. I mean, it's like obviously that's the idea of Chekhov's gun, you don't add anything to your story unless it's necessary. And I think James Gunn always manages to make it necessary. I just think a lot of the time it takes more than one film for it to be necessary for you to understand that. Like a lot of Peacemaker as a character in the Suicide Squad can't be fully understood unless you watch Peacemaker. Like obviously you can understand his character and be like, okay, I understand why he made this decision, you can connect to him and everything. But unless you see Peacemaker, there's a lot of context that once you rewatch the Suicide Squad after watching Peacemaker, like, oh fuck, that actually explains a lot. It's what we were talking about with Rocket, especially how like there's so much about him that we see in the first 2 films that once it's contextualized of why and how he came to be the way he is, it just becomes so different and so much more impactful and meaningful.
Yeah. Like what we also see is like with any other sort of like regular Marvel director like Peyton Reed, it would be the most surface level stuff, like just sort of the usual plain stuff you get in like a Marvel film.
Uh-huh.
But like with James Gunn, he takes it like a few steps further, adds like a lot more layers to it, and makes it just adds a layer of emotion to it, which
Yeah. Yeah, just
like
like there's not a single moment in these films where the characters, like where it isn't adding something to these characters and why they are the way they are, or, trying to understand why they do what they do. You kind of set up something, you're like, oh, this is just a throwaway joke, and a lot of the time it just isn't. Like there's a reason why we're doing this. It's really, I really appreciate it.
yeah, exactly.
Like even when fucking Nathan Fillion is being like, oh yeah, no, I have a guy like that as well, in dumbass employee. You have Aisha getting super mad at Adam Warlock because the entire party's like, oh yeah, he sucks, and they're laughing at the fact that he sucks. But you're seeing that Adam Warlock is already gaining a bit of character by seeing the little the little pet the guy had being sad that Adam Warlock killed his owner. It's just like I really don't like the way that's making me feel because it looks sad. Like you're already explaining a lot of what Adam Warlock is gonna do in the future, what he wants as a character, and that's why when he brings the pet along with him to get Rocket, because it's like, did you want me to leave you with the ship so my mom could so I could gut you? It's like it is a funny film, and I think all three films are, but you do expand, like Jab was saying, like fucking Rocket's obsession with fucking body modifications and shit like that. He's been being like wanting Bucky's arm, wanting the guy's eye, or the guy's leg, in Guardians Guardians 1. It's like, oh, there's reasons because of his friends and the way they were gutted and turned into these like beings that are just torn apart and made up of like, machine. And it's part of why he connects to Nebula so much, as you can tell. So
Yeah.
Suicide Squad in the scene where Bloodsport is talking about how his father tortured him with rats. You can see Peacemaker listening intently with a certain look on his face, which makes the scene with Peacemaker and his father have a bit more meaning. Exactly. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like that scene is a perfect example because his relationship with his dad is explored so much in the Peacemaker show. And that one scene, you can tell that there's something that, the Peacemaker's reaction implies, but you don't know exactly what it is yet. And then later that's more context. Which is why I think James Gunn running a shared universe is perfect, because he's the one who always loves to pay attention to those things, to those details of like the small things he adds and being like developing upon them. Like him being in charge of that and like helping writers keep that connective tissue, I think is going to be so important, and it's going to help so much to keep a universe that actually feels cohesive and connective and meaningful throughout, for hopefully many years.
Yeah, we can only hope.
Yeah, I do think he'd be a good one to write like a story about like the Flash. I think he could like a trilogy or something, especially because I don't think he would start with Flashpoint because he's not done.
Mm-hmm.
It's like starting Guardians with Guardians 3. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Or like start Avengers with Infinity War. It's just such a fucking dumb thing. But
Yeah.
But I think that's it, guys. In 10 managed to carry on the stream even when Jab died and Grant had to leave. So proud of us. We did it.
Mm.
I do like that Jab just disappears and doesn't tell us that he's leaving. So I just imagine he ended up falling asleep, I guess. Which isn't unheard of for him. But Alright. Well, chat. We'll catch you later. Thank you all for watching. Guardians 3 good. I don't know how much we'll talk about Guardians 3 going forward, because I think covering Guardians 3 videos is probably going to be pretty boring, because people are either going to be stupid when talking about it, or they're going to be based and like it as much as we do. So, yeah. It doesn't seem like a film that it would be very fun to defend, like Eternals, when you have, the meh. But maybe Az did do another meh for this film. I guess we should check Az's review, because I'm pretty sure he didn't like it. And I have heard some of the stupidest criticism from him. Did you know, Tin, that Az thinks Rocket was sidelined in this film?
What? Like, it's literally like his film. Like, the main emotional crux is literally him.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I'll just see if I can find what I think it was Sam who shared what Az said. Let's see if I can find it. But yeah, it was some of the funniest fucking criticism I've ever heard in my life. Here we go. Doesn't like how they handled Adam Warlock. Doesn't like how Gamora and Rocket were sidelined. Mantis isn't funny, but Drax is. What a weird criticism. Women can't be funny, so it makes sense for Az to think that. Star-Lord is too angry. What? Okay, Star-Lord is too angry. That's a criticism. The music is good, but there's a lot of music, whatever that means. The villain was good. Rocket's backstory flashbacks are unnecessary. Performance is good, other than Adam and his mom. No identity politics. Whoa. A miserable film. Too long of a film. Is a meh film. Doesn't feel like a conveyor belt MCU movie. So that is the review from Az, Heelverse Babyface himself.
I don't know how you can say it's a meh film and then say it's not a conveyor belt film. It's just like,
Well, it's like it's mediocre, but it doesn't feel like a regular MCU film, I guess. It's kind of like how you could say that about the Suicide Squad, where it has a bunch of issues. So you can say that it's a meh film, but it doesn't feel like a regular DCU film because it's not, you know? Or I guess
yeah.
Aquaman, I guess, may be a better example, where it isn't a meh film, it is a shit film. But it's very different from the rest of DCU, at least when it came out. Because it felt like a Marvel film, whereas the previous DCU films felt like Snyder films. So I guess that's why.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll catch y'all with ECUM 72 or Flash. I don't know which one's gonna come first. I'm not gonna be able to finish editing Flash this week because I got a freelance editing job that I need to finish editing. So tough luck for you Flash fans. My voice cracked very hard there. All right. Well, I'm gonna try to heal my voice now. Goodbye, Goatface.
Another Goldface.